What's up, guys? It's Toad back with you as I always am. It is Saturday, March 8th. Is that what it is? I don't even know. It's the final regular season of college basketball. Final regular season Saturday. One of the craziest days in college basketball, really. Of course, that means we have Selection Sunday next week as well. The first automatic bid to the tournament will be clinched tonight. It's actually a 9 p.m. Eastern game, so I'll mention that as well. I got 8 college basketball plays today, and I do have 2 of them in tournament play, so don't worry about that. I will actually have a couple in tournament play. I'm 1-1 in tournament play so far. And then I do have one NBA play and one NHL play, and I'll talk about some of those other games a little bit. I mean, a couple of leans, I guess. I'm going to talk about all the big college basketball games as well. At least it's a somewhat shorter card. Andrew, what's up, man? Yeah, you're the first one here. Probably the only one. All right. Let's get into it, man. Oh, actually, yesterday, 1-3, terrible, obviously. The Minnesota T-Wolves, I mean, come on, man. That was a bad beat. The T-Wolves had double-digit leads multiple times in that game. They were the better team in the game. They were winning the game. They blew one lead towards the end of the first half, got the lead back, and they were up double digits again in the third quarter, blew that lead. Then, in the final minutes of the game, they had the lead again, and it's like, okay, they're going to cover this thing on intentional fouls, right? I had the -4.5, which looked like it was going to happen. They got intentionally fouled. They got some free throws, put themselves back up 5 points with a few seconds left. And then what happens? Duncan Robinson, that ugly motherfucker, not a fan at all, on the Miami Heat, hits a three-pointer in the final couple seconds of the game. Useless three-pointer from Miami's perspective, but it backdoors the number for Miami. Miami loses by 2 instead of 5, and my cover doesn't happen because of that. Bullshit. Absolute bullshit. Will, what's up, man? Thanks for hanging out. Then we had the hockey game 1, the Chicago Blackhawks, of course. They were winning that game 3-1, and then they blew it. I think they did get outshot in that game, but what else is new? Blew a 3-1 lead, and it wound up going into overtime. I think they were up 3-1 in the third period, and they blew that against Utah, no less. Goes into overtime, but they win in overtime. Connor Bedard, kid, with the game-winning goal. I'm only a fan of Chicago when I have money on them. Otherwise, no. But that was a win for me. That was my only win last night, and it saved my night from being absolutely horrific. And then App State, I don't know what went on with that team, man. I was shocked to see the final result in that game because App State was winning most of the game. It was just like they just couldn't get that margin up. I'm like, come on, guys. You're up 4, you're up 5, you're up 6, whatever it was. I'm like, just push it. Just go on a run, pad the lead, and get out of here. Just finish it off, win the game. They're winning by 5 with, 8 minutes left in the game or something. I'm like, okay, this game is still absolutely in play. And then I stopped paying attention. Then I looked, and they lost the game outright. What? So they had a chance to cover the number. I'm like, okay, we're in this thing. And then they didn't even win as an 8-point favorite. And what happened in the game? App State went on a 6-minute span, I think, in the most crucial part of the game, without scoring at all. They were winning by 6, I think, and then it flipped to them losing by 4 over a span of 6 minutes. Absolutely ridiculous. Fuck App State. Let's move on to today. We got to get these college basketball's got to get going, man. I think I'm having a losing college basketball season, probably. It's been all over the place. You have these huge, it's always like massive amounts of flux, basically, in college basketball because there's just so much volume. Let's just get into it. Let's talk about these games. We'll talk about the conference tournament games first. Why not? Jump right into that. The regular games start at noon, but I think conference tournaments also start at noon. We'll talk about the Colonial, a.k.a. the Coastal, which is not what I will ever call it, in Washington, D.C. This is the first larger round of this tournament, if you want to call it that. I think a couple of games in this tournament already happened. A few of the teams already played, but now we're getting some of the better teams are starting to get involved, and the top teams still are not getting involved. The top teams in the conference still have a bye through this round. So Elon is playing Drexel. Elon up from a pick'em to a pick'em with juice. This is the first game up, but Drexel has some of the money coming in on them. 52% of tickets, 60% of the cash coming in on Drexel. I don't have a whole lot to say about this. I mean, I do think Elon is the better team, but they've also kind of come from out of nowhere this year, so they're kind of new to this, so I don't know that I would necessarily agree with that. The line move is kind of going against where the cash percentage is coming in, so it's kind of a hard market read as well, just looking at that screen there at least. And then Elon, they did play once this year, and Elon, I believe, lost at home. Am I right about that? I don't even know. I have to keep it. No, they went on the road and beat Drexel. Excuse me. Drexel lost at home. So it is a little bit of road revenge for Drexel. And I guess the other good thing for Drexel is that Drexel already played yesterday, so they have one game under their belt in the tournament. So that can sometimes help because you're adjusted to the venue. You kind of get that momentum going. So actually, wait, did Drexel play? Am I getting this all wrong? Did Drexel play yesterday? I think I might be thinking of Hofstra. Oh, my God. No, Drexel did not play. My mistake. So neither of these teams played, so excuse me. So throw that out as well. I don't know which way I would go in this game, man. It's basically like, I don't know. This is a degenerate special. I mean, unless you have a reason to play one side or the other here, I don't really. So I'm only talking about it because it is a conference tournament game. Delaware Campbell, I do actually have a better read on this game. I think Campbell up from 1.5 to 2.5 with juice. The money has driven Campbell up to, has driven the line up on Campbell. 80% of tickets, 78% of the cash on them. But I lean to Delaware in this game. Delaware is the D team. They're the big D. They got the D. Now, they're the D team that actually played yesterday, and they were blowing out Stony Brook, who's one of the worst teams in this conference, and lost the entire lead, and Stony Brook made it really, really close, way too close for comfort. So Delaware almost lost as a favorite. So they actually have two things going for them here where they almost lost as a favorite, and they're coming into this game having already played once in this venue yesterday, whereas Campbell did not. So I actually think Delaware would be the way to look in this game. I would take the points with Delaware if I was going to play that, even though I do think Campbell is the slightly better team. The Campbell Camels, the Camel Toes. I would not look that way there. I was going to point out one more thing, though. Elon, by the way, they finished their season on 3 straight losses, but 2 of them were on the road. One of them really ugly to Stony Brook, though. And a lot of times, if you finish the season on a loss streak like that, you kind of use that extra time between then and the conference tournament to fix some things. So Elon might be able to make some adjustments there and come into that game better than Drexel might be, because Drexel finished the season on a long win streak. So that is actually an angle. So I forgot to point that out. That is an angle that you can use where you want to fade teams that come into the conference tournament on a long win streak sometimes and go play on teams that had a long loss streak coming into that one. Especially when Elon, I think, is maybe the slightly better team there. So Elon would be the lean in that one. I lean to Delaware getting the points there. I lean to Northeastern here, even though they have 80% of tickets, only 69% of the cash. They're going to be public, but I think Northeastern is the better team. I think we may be getting a discounted price on them because they have been kind of an injured team this year, although I don't really know that much about their personnel. I know they were dealing with injuries, and I think they got some of those guys back. They're sitting at a pick'em, up to pick'em with juice. I do think they're the better team over this Hampton team, who isn't very good. Where is this game? This is the thing, when I look at the screen like this, I have to jump all over the place in the schedule here. Hampton, they did lose a couple of games coming into this tournament, but they had a close game against Towson, who's the #1 seed in the tournament, so they might still kind of have a hangover effect from that, maybe. And for Northeastern, they actually lost to Hampton at home not that long ago right here. That was a pretty bad loss for them, one of their home losses. Northeastern was a favorite in that one of 5.5. So pretty ugly loss, so it is a little bit of maybe a spot where you might see Northeastern adjust a little bit coming into this game, though they did finish on a win streak of a couple of games. I mean, nobody's really going to care that they beat Ncaab, who's the worst team in this conference and is already out of the conference tournament, but slightly into Northeastern. Hofstra Hofstra and Monmouth, all these games in D.C., just one after the other, man. A fun day of basketball. Hofstra down from 3.5 to 3.5 with reduced juice. 62% of the tickets on them, but 70% of the cash coming in on Monmouth. I don't know. I don't know what to think about that. The market indicators definitely coming in on the Monmouth side here. Let me try to find it. There it is. Monmouth, I believe, beat Hofstra at least once during the season. Yeah, they beat them on the road. That might have been the only time they played them. They beat them on the road pretty recently, so it is a little bit of a road revenge spot. But then you kind of have to dig in, like, was this a misleading result? Whatever. And I actually think it was kind of. Hofstra was winning this entire game. And the only time Monmouth ever had a lead was like right at the finish, basically. Other than that, Hofstra was winning this entire game, and Hofstra blew the whole game. So I don't know really what we can take away from that, because statistically, actually, the game was pretty close, kind of all around. So it was a pretty close game. But Hofstra was the 7.5-point home favorite here, and they lost that game. So I don't really know what these bettors are seeing in this game here and why they're all coming into Monmouth in this game, because I'm not sure that I would quite agree with that, other than the fact that it's just kind of this thing that I just hear over and over again. Hofstra sucks. Like, don't bet Hofstra. I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I think they're the better of these two teams at least, but we will see. I mean, that's not a game I'm going to play, obviously. Then we have the SoCon. These games, some of these games are going to be pretty good, I think. Chattanooga's the 1 seed in this tournament. They're up from 8 to 10 here. 97% of tickets, 92% of the cash. They're very public, but it looks like some money has driven their number up through the 10 to 10 with juice, even though they are public. I don't really want to come in on Chattanooga. I don't expect them to lose this game, obviously. Whether or not they'll cover maybe is a different story. Mercer hasn't really been very good this year. Mercer does have a game out of the way, and they almost lost as a favorite last night to Western Carolina. I had that game on over here for a little while, so that was a game where Mercer, maybe it was a little bit close for comfort, so Mercer does have a couple of situational advantages here where they already played. These games are being played in Asheville, North Carolina, neutral site, all one after the other, again, like some of these tournaments do. So Mercer is already adjusted to the venue. They kind of escaped against an inferior team last night, so maybe I would slightly lean to taking the points with Mercer, but Chattanooga is definitely the better team. I don't expect them to lose. I think they're the best team in this conference. VMI also has played in this tournament already. They beat the Citadel, but nobody really cares about that. So I guess maybe they have a slight advantage in that they're used to this venue now. UNC Greensboro up from 10 to 10.5 now. UNC Greensboro is the 2 seed, but I think they actually get an inferior opponent here. So I don't know how this happens. I think VMI is actually probably worse than Mercer is. So Chattanooga kind of gets a little bit of a screw job there, although I don't expect either of these teams to lose, but you never know. Some crazy shit can happen. I don't even know like which way I would lean as far as the point spread in this one. I don't really have an opinion on VMI Greensboro in this one. Wofford and East Tennessee State. East Tennessee State up from 1-1 with juice. Based on, like, if you look at these teams' records, you would think East Tennessee State would be better than Wofford by more of a margin than what this point spread is telling you. But the money does look like it is coming in on East Tennessee. I think this is the 3-6 matchup. Or, yeah, I believe it is. I don't know. I don't know how far Stanford fell. I think this must be, though. 69% of tickets, 86% of the cash coming in on East Tennessee. I mean, I could look real quick, but I don't really want this video to take all day here. So we'll see how much I can get this, how quickly I can get this done. East Tennessee State, I actually don't know, because Stanford and East Tennessee State wound up with the same conference records. So ESPN doesn't, like, they just sort it, like, based on conference record. I don't think they factor in the tiebreakers into the sorting here, so I don't even know if this is the 4-5 or the 3-6. It's one of those. It's 69% of tickets, 86% of the cash coming in East Tennessee State. I don't necessarily disagree with that. I mean, the market read coming in East Tennessee State, I do agree that they're the better team this year. And Furman and Samford, if you look at power ratings, Samford and Chattanooga are the top 2 teams in this conference, but Samford had some issues in conference play, and they actually got season swept by Furman. So that's part of the reason why they're sitting where they are in this 4 spot against Furman, the 5, I believe. And both of these teams, these are the previous 2 conference winners, I believe, too. Furman won it 2 years ago. Samford won it last year. They're 2 good teams, man. And these teams are both going to be a tough out in this tournament. So, again, I think if this tournament doesn't reseed, maybe it does. I don't know if it does or not, but Chattanooga should not be very happy if they wind up having to face the winner of this game if they get through Mercer, because they just have a way more difficult path if that's the case. I don't know if it really is, but this is a pretty packed conference, man. And within the top, 4 or 5 teams in this conference, they're all pretty good. Samford up from 2.5 to 3 with juice, 86% of tickets, 89% of the cash. The money is coming in on Samford, and maybe expecting Samford is going to get that double revenge here. Although, like I said, you can kind of throw revenge out the window when it's a tournament. I mean, obviously both teams have to show up. They both want to win this game. And, of course, Samford might have an extra target on their back because they won the tournament last year. I haven't gone as far as like looking to see, is this tournament revenge from last year or whatever. That's something that I tend to maybe overlook a little bit, and I just don't look at it as much as maybe I should. But I do think teams are going to be gunning for Samford because they did win the tournament last year. They got into the NCAA tournament, of course, and they actually they gave Kansas a scare in the first round. That very injured Kansas team. Would have been cool if Samford won that game. I just hate Kansas, and I had Gonzaga beating Kansas in the next round of my bracket anyway, which they did. But anyway, Samford, the money is coming in on Samford, maybe expecting them to finally make these adjustments and actually get Furman back for losing both regular season matchups. Samford is still the better of the two teams, so that is what we can take away. We're down to the semifinals in the Missouri Valley with both of the top two teams, or at least the top two seeds are still in it with Drake and Bradley. Drake up from 6 to 7.5 with juice here, so the money is coming in on Drake against Belmont. I do expect Drake to be able to win this game, but I mean, I don't think Belmont is really going to be that easy of an out, man. So I don't know. Both of these teams did play yesterday, though. So both teams are accustomed to this venue now. They both played yesterday and didn't really have that much difficulty in their respective games yesterday. They both won by double digits, I think. Drake, or maybe Belmont won by 8 over Murray State, something like that. Drake beat Southern Illinois, who had won the previous day. For me, I was on them. I was on Southern Illinois that previous game. I mean, Drake, 78% of tickets, 81% of the cash. Drake has been very, very good in this conference this year. They are the best team in this conference. Maybe somewhat surprising because their coach, DeVries, and his son, Tucker DeVries, I believe both left. They might both have gone to West Virginia. I forget, but I think DeVries, the player, I think got injured. So I don't even know if he's playing for West Virginia. I really just don't even have a clue. But Drake, with some of their guys still there and this new coach that came in, I think he brought at least one of his players with. Drake's coach, by the way, was a Division II coach, and he has like some really good Division II pedigree. Like his teams have won their conference regular season titles every year that he's been a coach for the last like decade plus. I think like over a decade. It's insane. I forget his name. McDermott, I think, Drake's coach, whatever his name is, Mick something. So definitely a coach with good pedigree, although he's stepping up to D1 here, but he's done really well with Drake this year. I would definitely suck if Drake doesn't make the tournament. I would actually be kind of pissed, even though I've never really been a fan of the Drake program. And that was, I had Western Kentucky beating them in my bracket way back in 2007. That was a really fun win for me there in that one. I actually had them in the Sweet 16 in my bracket that year and got that right. One of my best upset brackets I've ever had, but then my later rounds in that bracket sucked. Anyway, Drake does have the money coming in on them. I think they should win. Whether or not they cover, who knows? I don't really have a lean there. The other game, let's get to some of my plays already, even though I have it down somewhere in the list here. I'm going to lay the points with Bradley, minus 8.5, even though I've been talking about Bradley being overrated. But this is the 2 against the 11 here, man. I just think this is where Valpo's run comes to an end here. Valpo, who, by the way, changed their team name, which I was unaware of. They changed their team name from the Crusaders to the Beacons because I guess they thought badass holy warriors, religious Christian warriors were not appropriate anymore or something. So now they're the gay beams of light. Absolutely stupid. I hate it. I hate all these teams changing their names just for wokeness sake. It just really, really pisses me off. Whatever. Valpo, they're playing well in this tournament, but now they're playing a third straight game in a row, 3 days in a row. Bradley only played yesterday, but I think that helps Bradley a little bit that they played one game. Valpo is still going to be the more tired team, but Valpo has pulled off 2 straight upsets, including upsetting the team that I thought was the second best team in this conference, Northern Iowa. I thought Northern Iowa definitely had a shot to, well, obviously I thought they would beat Valpo, but I thought Northern Iowa was going to have a shot to take Bradley out in this game and then face Drake in the final. That's kind of what I thought, how I thought this one was going to play out. Crazy, this Valpo team with their best player is a guy named All Right. Not even joking. These parents are just insane at this point, man. You got, like USC Upstate had a guy named Mr. Dean that I thought was pretty funny, and he's now talking about transferring to a better school. Valpo has a guy named All Right. Oh, yeah, her last name is Right. Let's name our kid All. How about that? I forget where he's from. He is from some other country, I think. I forget. I don't even remember, man. But he played really, really well last night. So good for him, I guess. But Valpo, I think it's got to be the end of the road here once they run into a team that's like this far superior to them. Really, they're facing two teams in a row that are pretty far superior to them. Bradley up from 8.5 to 9 here. So it does look like the line movement is at least in agreement with me on laying the points here with Bradley. I think there are still 8.5s out there, I would assume. Obviously, you can't lay anything less than 8.5. Like, there aren't going to be any 7s out there, which is unfortunate because 7 is the key number. But I like Bradley in this one. As much as I keep saying Bradley is overrated, I actually think Valpo is also overrated. This is at 6 p.m. on CBS Sports. Bradley, I mean, they're coming off just they had the easy win over Murray State. Yeah, what was I talking about then? Who did Belmont beat yesterday then? I don't even know who Belmont beat then. Belmont beat, who the fuck did they beat? Belmont. I don't even know. They beat Illinois State. Yeah, that's right. Illinois State, excuse me. So Bradley, coming off just kind of coasting by Murray State, really. I mean, not an impressive win, really, but they just kind of keep their momentum going. And yes, I know they did win at Valpo. Bradley swept the season series against Valpo, but I just think it's because they're the better team. I mean, Bradley was a 14.5-point favorite in the home game against them earlier this year, and Bradley actually blew the lead in this game and almost lost, which might cause them to take Valpo seriously. This game went into double OT. Bradley had the lead and let it slip, and neither team shot particularly well in this game. Bradley actually lost the rebound battle, so it was a close game statistically, so really not a whole lot that was misleading about it other than Bradley, I think, just kind of took their foot off the gas and stopped paying attention. But then Bradley, I think because of that, they were focused on Valpo, and they got them at home. Bradley was a 4.5-point road favorite in this one, and after a close first half, Bradley pulled away in this one. They shot pretty well in this game. The Valpo shot 41.7% from three, won the turnover battle, and they still lost because Bradley just dominated the rebounds. Again, Bradley is the better team in my opinion. I think Ken Pom has them winning this game by, I don't know, something more than what the number is. He has them winning by 8, so that's just about what I care about. Again, go subscribe to Ken Pom, man, because I don't really want to show all of his numbers here. It's only like $25 a year or something, or $29.99 a year or something now, like pretty cheap price a year to get all these stats, man. He's got the best set of stats. It's him, Evan Maya, which I think is a bit more expensive, and Bart Torvik, who gives you a lot of stuff for free. So those are the guys that I like. Let me see. Valparaiso, let me see. The gay Beacons here. Beacons of Light. They play a little bit faster than Bradley does, so I think Bradley's going to want to slow the game down a little bit. Even though Bradley, I know they're high up in luck index, but Valpo is somewhat high up in luck index as well. Valpo does play good defense, so I know they're a team that they play good defense, and Bradley is the team that likes to slow it down. But Bradley actually is good on offense. They're actually a top 100 offensive efficiency team and just outside of the top 100 defensively. So Bradley is a much more balanced team. Nobody's debating whether or not they're the better team. Of course they are. But I guess the concerns that I might have is that are that Bradley slows the game down a bit and that Valpo is okay on the defensive side. So that does worry me with laying points. But I just think this is going to be it. I think this is the end of the road for Valpo after they pulled off those upsets. I know I went against a team that had pulled off a couple of upsets last night, but their upsets weren't as monumental as this one, as Valpo's was last night. And Valpo played the night game last night, and Bradley played earlier in the day, so Bradley actually has extra rest as well coming into that one. So give me Bradley. Let's move over to the quarterfinals in Pensacola in the Sun Belt, as I don't know what's going on in this. I think some of the teams have buys until the semifinals. I think South Alabama and Arkansas State maybe. Or wait, no. South Alabama and... No, Arkansas State's playing today, so who the hell is it then? I don't even know. Or did South Alabama already get involved in the tournament? I don't even know, man. Who the hell else is even in the Sun Belt? I don't even know. I don't know what's going on in the Sun Belt anymore, man. I have it right here, though. Here's Arkansas State. Arkansas State's playing Marshall. Arkansas State is entering the tournament now. Let's see. It's South Alabama and James Madison are the teams that have the buys until the semifinals. This has been a cluster in this conference, man. I think Arkansas State actually fell to the 4 seed, and Troy is the 3. which kind of sucks because now Arkansas State's up against, I think the 5 seed is Marshall. I don't even know. Arkansas State up from 6.5 to 8 here, though. So the money is coming in on Arkansas State, driving them up. I think they actually just lost to Marshall not that long ago. Arkansas State actually has had some difficulty stepping up and beating the better teams in this conference, though. Like, they lost at home to Troy. I think they got swept in the season series by South Alabama. They did beat Troy on the road, though, but they lost to JMU on the road, but I'm not going to knock them for that much. That might have been the only time they played JMU. I don't know. But they have had some difficulty after they were off to a hot start. They've kind of righted the ship, although they beat bad teams to finish the season. Now they're coming into this tournament on a win streak against bad teams, which is usually something you do usually want to look to fade teams that come into the tournament looking like this, where they're on a nice win streak, but all they've been doing is kind of clobbering bad teams. That doesn't look that great, but they did lose at Marshall not that long ago. Although I think this game, Marshall took control in the second half and just won the game. Arkansas State did shoot particularly poorly in general from the field, even though they did hit a lot of three-pointers. Marshall did win the rebounding battle, so I don't know. The money is coming in on Arkansas State. I do think they're the better team. I do still think they're maybe the best team in this conference. And they play a fun, kind of fast-paced style that is fun to watch. I think you want to watch them in this tournament. I think they're going to be fun again. They had a nice run in this tournament, either last year or the year before that, as one of the lower seeds. They made a big run, I think, to the final. So this is a program that's kind of on the rise. They're doing pretty well. They should beat Marshall, in my opinion, although they're coming in not having played yet in this tournament. And Marshall did win last night. And Marshall beat, Georgia State or something. And they barely got by Georgia State. So Marshall is coming off a little bit of an escape there. So there are some situational angles that would kind of have me leaning Marshall in this one. But the money is coming in on Arkansas State, it looks like. It's probably a legitimate move there. I won't play it. And then Old Dominion against Troy. Troy is the 3 seed in this conference. They're up from 10.5 to 11.5. So they are a big favorite against this Old Dominion team that beat me last night, and they just won't go away. And I think maybe this would be the point where they're going to lose. It's kind of a situation where I'd look to want to fade them because now they're playing a 4th game in 4 days, even though I got screwed trying to go against NC State when they were doing that in the ACC last year because, NC State was just one of those teams where it's like they're going to continue to be motivated because they know they have to win the entire thing to get into the tournament. And now they're that close, so they just keep doing it. For Old Dominion, I don't know, though. In these small conference tournaments, these teams that go on an unexpected run like this usually die out at some point before they get, all the way. So I don't know if it's going to happen here or not. Troy is definitely the way better team. Old Dominion has pulled off a win, I believe, as a favorite against Louisiana Lafayette, and then pulled off 2 wins as underdogs in this tournament. So they're actually facing a Troy team that's been off this whole time. So Troy is the way more rested team here. Troy having not played for a while now. Let's see. Did Troy come into this tournament on a win streak, though? Because that would be a little bit bad. Yeah, they won 3 games in a row to finish the season. So gives me a little bit of pause there that I don't know that I would necessarily want to jump in and play Troy when they haven't played for a while. And they went into this on a win streak where it's like you're feeling pretty good about yourselves. Troy also plays more of a slow-paced defensive style, which is not great when you're laying double digits either. So Old Dominion, they do have the momentum, and they are kind of adjusted to this venue here. But, they keep pulling off these upsets. I just don't think it's going to continue. So I highly doubt Troy loses this game. Will they cover? That's a different story. Again, they're up to 11.5 here, but 67% of tickets, 98% of the cash coming in on Old Dominion. So I don't know. And then the Big Sky conference starts tonight, this conference tournament with the bottom 4 teams of the conference. I think every team in the conference does get into this thing, if I'm not mistaken. And they're all, the bottom 4 teams are playing each other here. Whatever it is, the 7 through 10, or is it I don't know what it is. I don't know how many teams are in this conference. Sacramento State's playing Weber State. Weber State up from 3 to 4 with juice. Weber State is kind of a staple of this conference just because they had Damian Lillard back in the day. Everybody kind of knows the name Weber State. They've won this conference multiple times in recent memory. Haven't been very good this year, though, and they've finished the season on kind of a bad note, losing 2 in a row. They played really close in their final home game on senior night against Northern Colorado, who's probably the best team in this conference. So that was a good performance out of them. They lost at home to the Sacramento State team not that long before that, though. And Weber State was a 7.5-point favorite in that game. They lost to Sacramento State. Sacramento State shot ridiculously in that game, 51.7% from three. They did out-rebound Weber, but I don't expect that to happen again. I think Weber is going to remember that. Weber is the better team here. Sacramento State, I think, is the worst team in this entire conference, so I do expect Weber State to win the game. I mean, I think I would lean that way with them laying the points, even though they do have more name recognition. And then Eastern Washington, Northern Arizona. Northern Arizona is down from 3 with juice to 2.5 with juice, with 76% of tickets, 59% of the cash. So Northern Arizona is public, and the line is moving down on Northern Arizona. I might agree with the line move here. By the way, these are all neutral site as well. This tournament is in Boise, Idaho, which might kind of help the two Idaho teams to some extent, but the Idaho teams usually don't win this conference tournament, so who knows. Northern Arizona, they beat one of those teams, Idaho State, to finish the season. Against Eastern Washington, I believe they swept the season series. They beat them by 20 at home and beat them by 9 on the road. And I don't know that there was that much that was misleading about these. I dug into the box score, and I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, I think Northern Arizona won the rebound battle in both games. These scores didn't look that misleading to me. Well, this one actually does, excuse me, even though Northern Arizona did win the rebound battle again. 64.3% from three, 61.8% from the field. Yeah, that is an outlier. So Northern Arizona, that was a blowout win that probably should have been closer than it was, but I think they did kind of legitimately win both games, though, so I'm kind of surprised the money is coming in against Northern Arizona. The professional bettors seem like they see something on the Eastern Washington side. I don't know. I don't really see what they're seeing, so I'm just going to lay off of it, but that is the case there. The Summit League continues into the semifinals, so we have a weird situation here where the top 2 seeds are still in the tournament, but the 2 teams that I thought were actually the best teams in the tournament, power rating-wise, the 2 Dakota States, North Dakota State and South Dakota State, both got knocked out last night in upsets. The South Dakota State one being a bigger upset than the other one, which I'll talk about. I will definitely talk about that. South Dakota is facing Omaha, who is the 1 seed. I think South Dakota is actually are they the 4 seed or I forget what they are. They came out of, I think, the 4-5 matchup to get into this one. Omaha, I think they beat, who did they beat? I don't even remember who they beat. Omaha up from 4.5 to 5 with juice. 92% of tickets, 97% of the cash. So the money looks like it's coming in on Omaha. I think these 2 teams split the season series. I think the home team won each game, if I'm not mistaken. I would have to go back and look. You know, I've been saying Omaha is not actually the best team in this conference. I think that they're definitely vulnerable. And this game, I don't know that they necessarily would be, but they're definitely public, and I would not want to jump in and lay the points with them here, even though the line has moved in their direction. Looks like there is some money coming into them. I don't really see it. They came out of they just beat Kansas City, who came out of the 8-9 matchup to get into the 8 spot there, basically to face Omaha in the first round. Kansas City's just not a very good team, and Omaha was a smaller favorite in that game though than they are in this game, which is just really insane. I don't know why Kansas City getting that much respect in the markets, although I thought that line was misleading enough that it looked way too easy to take Omaha. Again, I'm not going to do it. I mean, I think it still almost looks too easy to play Omaha here, but I will play the other game. I'm going to lay St. Thomas minus 7.5. They are the best team remaining in this conference. They are one of the best teams in this conference. So I think they're right behind the 2 states. I think they are one of the top 3 teams in this conference. I think Omaha is 4th. As I keep saying, I don't think they're that good. And North Dakota, I think, is the inferior opponent versus South Dakota as well. I think South Dakota definitely is the 4 seed because I think there's a huge gap between them and like the 5 through 9 in this conference, so at least record-wise. So North Dakota, definitely an inferior opponent, and they pulled off the bigger upset. I know South Dakota made a comeback and pulled off the upset, or it was a close upset. I think it was like a 1.5-point upset. I think North Dakota State, the line was really close in that game. So South Dakota pulled off that kind of minimal upset, but it was a comeback, kind of a big win there. North Dakota State had the lead all game, just faltered at the end. Whereas North Dakota just had a game where they played out of their minds and they upset South Dakota State. And the game was like not in doubt by the end of it. North Dakota had a huge lead there. It was a huge upset. South Dakota State was like a 9.5-point favorite in that game. So now I think North Dakota crashes down to earth here, and I think you're going to see St. Thomas get this one, even though they're down from 8 to 7.5. St. Thomas is the better team. They're the best team left. They're a good team in this conference. And the thing about St. Thomas is they're ineligible still for the tournament due to the stupid transition rules. St. Thomas transitioned up to Division I, I think 3 or 4 years ago now, so this is their last year of transition. I think they should petition, or maybe they did try to petition to be eligible for the tournament this year, but they won't be. But I think that if they do make the final, or especially if they win this conference tournament, they will probably get an invite to like the CIT or the CBI or whatever, one of those non-NCAA affiliated postseason tournaments, so they will get to continue playing. But I just think that teams like that play with a chip on their shoulder, man, because they want to win this conference tournament just to prove, like, hey, you're telling us we're ineligible? Well, we're good enough to be that team. So I think they play with a chip on their shoulder, and I think they get a little bit of a break here because they get to play this North Dakota team that pulled off an upset yesterday. And not only did they do that, but they pulled off the upset in the late game last night. That was the last game to finish, I'm pretty sure, whereas St. Thomas was done with their game earlier, and it was an easier win, just kind of a cakewalk game against Denver there. Easy win there. That South Dakota team, by the way, beat, South Dakota's the 5, excuse me. Let me see. That South Dakota team beat, who did they beat yesterday? Or they beat North Dakota State. I'm an idiot. I just said that. They pulled off the upset over North Dakota State. It must have been the 4 seed in the tournament. South Dakota State was the 3. St. Thomas is the 2. So South Dakota State lost as the 3 seed, unfortunately. St. Thomas had a much, much easier game there. Now they get this North Dakota team who really, really isn't that good. North Dakota lost at St. Thomas not that long ago. But St. Thomas, I mean, like I said, they're just the better team. St. Thomas is a 9.5-point favorite there, so maybe they should be a little bit less than 7.5 here. But I don't think this game was really that misleading, even though St. Thomas did shoot really well. So maybe you could argue a little bit of an outlier situation there. But North Dakota only had 4 turnovers in this game, and they still got manhandled by St. Thomas. And St. Thomas out-rebounded them. So I don't think there's that much misleading about that one. And then North Dakota lost at home to them as well, with St. Thomas being 5.5-point favorites. And again, they ran away with this game. They did outshoot North Dakota pretty well in this game. Again, they lost the turnover battle, so that is a concern. North Dakota actually won the rebound battle at home, but had a really bad shooting game. So these are some kind of outliers, I would say, in that one. But we're not at North Dakota here. We're playing in a neutral site at Sioux Falls. I forgot to mention yet again, these Summit games are at Sioux Falls. But North Dakota, again, they blew out South Dakota State. They're actually down to a 7.5-point favorite. My mistake. South Dakota State was. But this game, North Dakota was down at halftime, and they just had a huge, huge run. Look at this. I mean, they were still losing the game with 10 minutes left in the game. And I don't know what happened. They completely turned it around. South Dakota State completely fell silent. Just crazy. And South Dakota State, I mean, come on, man. You want to talk about outliers? South Dakota State, 31.3% from the field in this game and 10.3% from 3. That is ridiculous. Like, St. Thomas is not going to shoot that badly. That is insane. And North Dakota, 40.6 from 3. 40.6%, that's not going to happen. South Dakota State won the turnover battle, really protected the ball well, won the rebound battle, and still lost the game that badly because these shooting percentages were such outliers. So, yeah, this was definitely an outlier performance. And North Dakota had a guy on their team go off for 51 points, too, which was, I believe, a Summit League. Oh, I was already on the box score. A Summit League, or on the game page. Trayson Eaglestaff, absolutely insane performance in this game. Went off for 51 points in this game, hit 8 3-pointers, which I believe was a Summit League record or maybe a Summit League tournament record for points scored by an individual player. So North Dakota, they're just riding this crazy, crazy high. I think it's got to come to an end here. It's going to be St. Thomas in that game. We're going with the Tommies. This is a good team. North Dakota's not a very good team. St. Thomas, as you can see here, they're actually ranked 63rd in offensive efficiency in Ken Palm, so they can definitely score. And this North Dakota team is very, very bad defensively. So North Dakota, I think, got away with it last night with South Dakota State shooting very, very poorly. St. Thomas, not good defensively. They do play fairly fast, and yeah, I know they are high in luck index, but they should still win this game. I think Ken Palm has this line at about 10, if I remember correctly. So I think we're getting a little bit of value here. Actually, let me see. Maybe it's not 10. No, it's 8. Excuse me. But still, 8, pretty good. Pretty close to where the line is here. Let me see. And then we got North Dakota way down at 257. He does have them lower in the luck index. They like to play a little bit faster, and St. Thomas is going to slow the game down. Again, like I said with Bradley, yeah, I know I'm laying points with the slowdown team, but I'm not as concerned about it because, especially with St. Thomas, because their offense is really efficient. So I think we're going to see some offensive scoring here. In North Dakota, terrible defensively, 338th out of 364 Division I teams. And again, they like to play a lot fast or significantly faster, I would say, than St. Thomas does. Like I said, so St. Thomas may be able to kind of take the game down and throw them out of their element a little bit. But after last night's game, yeah, give me St. Thomas in that one. Okay. More conference tournament action. Again, like I said, the first final is in action in the Ohio Valley between the 2 seed and the 1 seed. They're both still alive in this clusterfuck of a conference tournament here where really these teams have not been huge favorites in these games, and they have made it. SIU, Edwardsville, and Southeast Missouri State. Southeast Missouri State down from 3-3 with reduced juice. 52% of tickets, 59% of the cash coming in on Southeast Missouri State. I actually think Edwardsville was actually the favorite in their home game this year, and I think they were, I think it was like a pick'em game in the game at Southeast Missouri. So I actually think both regular season games were lined like SIU Edwardsville is the better team, but now Southeast Missouri is lined as the better team, and Ken Baum does agree with that. So I think the odds makers just didn't have it right in the previous game. Southeast Missouri State won both regular season matchups, and both of them by very similar margins, 80-64 and 80-63, or excuse me, 83-68. Excuse me. I don't know that there was that misleading about these. I do think they're the better team. They did shoot a bit better in the game on the road at SIU Edwardsville. SIU Edwardsville, I believe, was on the wrong end of the turnover battle in both games, even though they did out-rebound Southeast Missouri in that particular game. At home, Southeast Missouri dominated the rebound battle. And actually, SIU Edwardsville actually didn't turn it over very much in this game, but they did have a bad three-point shooting performance. But SEMO, I mean, it's kind of hard to gauge. I mean, I don't know that there's that much we can take away from those two games there. This is a tough game to gauge, man. Southeast Missouri State has kind of proven themselves to be the better team. Ken Baum does have them winning this game by 3 or so. Not going to be a play for me, but I mean, an under could be the way to look in a game like this when you have these Ohio Valley games do tend to be pretty low scoring in the tournament, and you know, a championship game tends to be defense oriented because both teams want to show up focused. They tend to not want to make mistakes, so they have kind of a less frenetic pace a lot of times. So a lot of times you see unders, but this thing has dropped big time. The total from 141 to 134 and a half. 86% of tickets, only 77% of the cash coming in on that total, on the over. So I agree with the under, but that line has dropped so much. You've definitely lost, I think, too much value to try to come in and play the under there. And then we do have some other games that are not very exciting in Las Vegas at the Orleans Casino there, where the West Coast Conference plays their conference tournament. This is one of those tournaments like the Sun Belt changed their tournament to be this format where teams just have like 1 million buys in the tournament before they actually play, which is just ridiculous. So this is the third round, according to pregame here. Oregon State and Washington State both coming in this round. The two former Pac-12 teams both entering play here. Pepperdine and Loyola Marymount have already played in this tournament. They both advanced, obviously, against inferior teams for sure. Oregon State up from 10.5 to 11.5 with juice. The line has been driven up on Oregon State, but they got 80% of tickets on them. 65% of the cash coming in on Pepperdine. I mean, maybe there would be a reason to look at maybe taking the points with Pepperdine just because Oregon State, they're not used to this venue, man. So same thing with Washington State. These two teams, they're not used to playing in the Orleans arena, whereas the teams that have been in the West Coast Conference already, they know what they're doing here. They've already, they play every year in the tournament in this venue, so they're used to it. Whereas these former Pac-12 teams new to the conference, they're not used to this venue. So that could be a bit of a disadvantage to Oregon State and Washington State here, and the fact that Pepperdine and Loyola Marymount have both already played. So I might kind of lean to both of those sides in these two games, but I mean, Pepperdine is so bad. I don't really want to come in and try to take the points there. Both lines have been driven up a little bit. Washington State up from 2 to 3 with juice. Don't see the percentages yet. Don't know that I would agree with that line move either. Like I said, I don't know that I necessarily agree with either line move there, but it's not really something I want to get involved in. So let me hold on a second, and I will be back. We're going to go to an intermission here, and I'll be back because I need more water. Got to blow my nose. I'm sniffling like I'm on cocaine or something. I gave you the 2 conference tournament plays already. I will come back and talk about regular season in a few minutes. It'll only be like a minute or 2. I'll be back, and then we'll talk about the rest and the other sports. Hopefully I can get through it all. We have at least another hour left to go here, man. Hopefully it's not going to be that much more than that, but let me, I will be back in a second. Hang on. Bear with me. Excuse me. All right, we're back. Man, I think the fact that I have like the heat on here kind of is it just makes everything so dry too. It's awful, which is also why I can't really wear a hoodie right now either. This is crazy, man. All right, let's get to the regular season college basketball games here today, where I have 6 more plays. This is just insanity, man. It's madness. What do you want? Let's go through it this way. We'll go through it in sequential order. Number 6, St. John's. Number 20, Marquette on Fox in less than an hour. This is going to be a pretty good game, man. I mean, these two teams, pretty good teams in the Big East. Obviously, St. John's is the talk of the town. They've really, really proven themselves. Now, the issue with St. John's here is that they've already more than wrapped up the Big East, man. So they really don't have a whole lot to play for here, whereas Marquette, I think, does, even though Marquette, they're going to get one of the top seeds in this tournament as well. So however the tournament is structured, they'll get like the maximum amount of buys, I think, or close to it. So I don't think they really care about seeding that much. But of course, it's going to be senior night for Marquette, and then it's going to be revenge for Marquette, as St. John's did beat them at St. John's, where St. John's is only a 2.5-point favorite in that game. I think the odds makers were undervaluing St. John's back then. St. John's, obviously, they've been really, really good in this conference this year, and all their losses have been, throughout the entire season, they haven't lost a game by more than 3 points. So it's really, really difficult to lay points here. I mean, St. John's, they lost to Baylor by 1, Creighton by 1. What were their other losses? Villanova by 2 and Georgia by 3. I think those are their losses this year. So you're looking at this line, like, I have to lay more than what St. John's has lost by all season. Marquette up from 1.5 to 3.5 with juice. 65% of the cash coming in on them. 54% of tickets on St. John's. Of course, if you like Marquette, I would have obviously preferred to have laid a lesser number than that before the line moved up. The cash is coming in on them. I do like the Marquette side in this one, because St. John's they don't have anything left to play for, and it just looks so easy to take the points with St. John's. I think the public is going to come in here and think, oh my God, I'm getting points with the better team here, the higher ranked team. Like, what am I doing here? Like, it looks so easy. It looks too obvious almost. And again, a St. John's team that hasn't lost by this margin literally this entire season. But it's senior night for Marquette. I think they're going to show up. It's revenge. They're coming off a loss, although it was a loss to UConn, so that was a pretty big game as well. So a little bit of a hesitation. They're playing two big games in a row. And with St. John's still being the better team out of the two, it makes it a little bit difficult to want to try to do this with Marquette, as Ken Bum has them down. He has actually Marquette only 9 ranking spots lower. Both teams play fast, but St. John's actually plays defensively. Both teams actually play well defensively, even though they both play fast. This is going to be potentially a defensive battle. He does have Marquette winning this game by 2 points, I believe. So take from that what you will. I agree with the Marquette side, but 3.5 is definitely a bit much to be laying in this particular game. Not a play for me. Number 19, Kentucky. Number 15, Missouri. This is a game. Kentucky, they're coming off beating LSU and just drilling them by 31 points. And now they have to go on the road to face Missouri. Maybe not the greatest spot for Kentucky, because I think at this point, they're whatever. I mean, they're going to be like a 3 seed, a 4 seed in the tournament, whatever it's going to be. I don't think they care that much. I mean, they're probably, that's in the NCAA tournament. I mean, I forget whatever they're going to be in this conference tournament. I don't think it's going to change that much either. I don't think they really care about moving up and down when these teams are all in the middle of the standings here. It doesn't really matter that much. Missouri, I think, is in the better spot as they're coming off 2 straight losses, losing to Oklahoma by double digits. Oklahoma really a desperate team, needing to try to get into the tournament at all because they're a bubble team. So they were able to beat Missouri in that game. Bad loss for Missouri. Missouri coming off 2 straight losses on the road, coming back home for senior night. I would lean to the Missouri side in this one. Not a play for me. They're up from 5 to 6.5 with juice. 59% of tickets on them, but 57% of the cash coming into Kentucky. So I don't know what that's about. The line move has been in the direction of Missouri. Kentucky is dealing with injuries, as we know. Jackson Robinson, I think is his name, is out for the season now. So that's not good. And I think they have one other guard who's also injured now, too. Although they got Lamont Butler back, who is a key piece for Kentucky. But I think they're going to be pretty thin at guard coming down the stretch here, man. And this Kentucky team, not great defensively anyway. Both of these teams are much better offensively than defensively, and they both like to play fairly fast. So I also lean to the over in this game. That might be the better way to play it, to be honest. Up from 171 to 170, or 170 to 171, juice to the under. 88% of tickets, only 82% of the cash on the over, but I agree with the over here. If you look at when these teams have played faster paced games, like Kentucky, Missouri, when they face like Alabama, when they face Florida, almost all of those games have gone over this number. But of course, Alabama is even more ridiculously fast. And Florida is also really fast too. But again, you're getting 2 teams that are much better offensively than defensively. They're both very, very good offensively, not as good defensively. They both play fast. My one hesitation may be that Missouri is the home team, and they might actually try to slow Kentucky down a little bit because they know Kentucky plays even faster than they do. So that's kind of the one issue that I would maybe have with that, but I do expect it to go over. Number 25, Mississippi State at Arkansas. So we get some couple of big SEC games right off the bat. That game I just talked about on ESPN. This one's on SEC Network. Mississippi State just lost at home as a favorite to Texas, a very, very desperate Texas team here. But now they're going out on the road to face another desperate team in Arkansas, because Arkansas is on the bubble as well. Mississippi State doesn't have a whole lot else to play for here. I mean, they're going to be in the tournament. Doesn't really matter as much to them, I don't think, even though they are coming off a bad loss at home. They've lost 3 of their last 4, but 2 of them on the road. But coming off an ugly loss at home as a favorite, does that mean they're going to be in a bounce back? I don't know, man. I would prefer the Arkansas side here, even though they are coming off a big road upset win, which is a game I was on Arkansas in that game. That was a big win, and Arkansas was without one of their best players. Brazil did pretty well in his absence, though. Arkansas was missing, I forget the guy's name, one of the guys that Calipari brought over from Kentucky. He's one of their best big men. He was out for that game. I don't know if he's going to be back in this game, but this is senior day for Arkansas, even though I know they're coming off an upset. Mississippi State just got upset, but I still think the Arkansas side is probably the way to look in this game. I'm not playing it, but Arkansas, they got to pad their resume still, man, for tournament's sake. The market looks like it's disagreeing with that and agreeing with the Mississippi State side. I don't know why Arkansas is this public. Like, really? This is a situation where you technically have an unranked home favorite here against a ranked road underdog. So I don't really understand the public coming in on this side on Arkansas, but 74% of tickets, only 70% of the cash on Arkansas. And the line's down from 2 to 1.5 with juice. I would still lean to Arkansas, though. I would probably look to money line it in that one. And actually, I forgot to talk about one of the other tournaments that's being played today, man. So I will, maybe I'll do that at the end of the show. I apologize. I'll get back to that. I'll give it as a little bonus. There's just so much to take into account here, man. This is crazy. Vandy at Georgia. I got to remember what my plays even are. None of my plays kick off until 2 p.m., though. So Vandy, they're coming off that home loss to Arkansas, but they're more securely in the tournament, and now they're going over to Georgia. And Georgia coming off a win over South Carolina, but they kind of need to keep winning as well. They won those 2 road games. They won 3 in a row. They're back at home. It's senior night for Georgia, so there are things that would have me leaning to the Georgia side here, even though Vandy is coming off getting upset at home. This is another one of the situations where Georgia is the team that needs the game more. Maybe that doesn't mean there's pressure on you, though. So, like, teams that need the game more, I like to play them more in an underdog role because you know you're going to get that full effort for them. So even if the pressure is on them, they don't need to actually win the game. Whereas for Arkansas to hit, they're going to need to win. Georgia in this game, I don't know if are they the favorite? They probably are, right? They must be. Let me see. Yeah, they're up from 4.5 to 5 here. 64% of the cash, 55% of the tickets on them. So the money does look like it is on the Georgia side. Agreeing with me on this one. I agree with myself, as I say a lot of the time. Georgia is one of the bubble teams right now as well. Vandy is more safely in the tournament field right now. So Georgia does need the game a little bit more, even though my hesitation is similar to that other game I just talked about with Mississippi State, where Mississippi State and Vandy both in kind of similar situations, and Arkansas actually kind of in a similar, or well, Arkansas was on the other side of that Vandy game there, where both teams are coming into this. Mississippi State and Vandy both coming in off of losses as home favorites. So we'll see what happens. The A10, by the way, is still in regular season play. So is the Ivy. So is the MAAC. And there are a couple other conferences going on here. Conference USA, SWAC, all those teams. And I forgot to talk about American East. Man, I got to go back and talk about multiple different conferences. NEC and American East are in tournament play. I still got to talk about those teams. So I apologize. Penn State at Wisconsin. Wisconsin followed up that Michigan State loss, tough loss, with a second straight road game, and they were able to beat Minnesota. So that's a good sign. Tells me Wisconsin playing pretty well in a kind of a disadvantageous spot there. They still got the win. Now they're back home against Penn State to finish the season. Don't think it's a terrible spot for Wisconsin here. Senior night, coming off that bad game. A couple of performances that weren't that great, I guess I should say, even though they still did beat Minnesota there. Penn State, they're dead, man. They can't get out of the cellar now. So these bottom 3 teams are not going to make the conference, are not going to make the Big Ten tournament. Penn State and Washington are guaranteed to not make the conference tournament. Now, Iowa, I think, might still have a chance to get up out of that hole there, even though they lost for me the other night. Bullshit. Penn State. And by the way, I forgot to mention in that Iowa game, Fran McCaffrey, their coach, he should be fired, man. I know he's been there for a long time, but he started putting in like the reserves in a game that they need to win to get into the tournament against a big-time Michigan State team. Like, what the hell are you doing, man? It made no sense. You're just going to, like, pull your starters and not put in the effort? What the fuck? Anyway, I'm just pissed about that. Penn State coming off a tough loss at home to Maryland. They played Maryland really close. That was last Saturday. I think that was one of my plays. Maryland, I thought, was in a bad spot. Penn State did get the cover from me there, and we had I think a decent performance from a couple of Penn State's players. I'm just reading some of these headlines here. Penn State, I mean, I think this guy is their best player, Yannick Conan Niederhauser. A great name, by the way. So we'll see what happens here, but I kind of lean to the Wisconsin side here. I mean, Penn State, I know it's their final game, but they got nothing to play for really at this point, man. They're going to miss out on the tournament unless they think they can kind of try to spoil Wisconsin's senior night. I mean, is that enough of a motivator, senior day? I don't really think so. I kind of like the Wisconsin side in that one. They're down, though, from 12 to 11.5. 89% of tickets, only 73% of the cash on. So the money is coming in against Wisconsin. I don't get it. I don't really see it. Iowa State is only laying kind of a small price on the road at Kansas State. It's Kansas State's senior night, but the issue I kind of have with this is that Iowa State, one of their worst losses of the season, was at home against Kansas State, and that was when Iowa State had those injury issues, man. They were without, I think Momcilovic was out in that game, so at least one of their best players was out, man. So Iowa State, they're intact now, and that was a bad home loss by almost 20 points. So Iowa State might actually still show up in this game just because they remember that game and they might be pissed about it. They're coming off games against Arizona that they won at home. Then they somehow lost that game against BYU. I don't know. BYU, man, pulling off these games like this. I don't know what's going on with that. I thought Iowa State was the right side in both of those games. I don't know, but Iowa State, yeah, I know it's senior night for Kansas State. They probably aren't going to want to end the season below 500. I believe they will be in the Big 12 tournament, though, so that doesn't really matter. They're coming off a couple wins in a row. Sure, with Iowa State coming into their place, they will be focused again, but the money looks like it is a little bit on Iowa State with 57% of the cash, only 56% of the tickets on them. So ticket percentage is kind of on them. They're down, actually, from 7 to 6 with juice. The line has moved down on them. I mean, it looks like the cash percentage is coming in on Iowa State. I think that revenge motive might be a little bit strong, though, just because it is Iowa State coming. That was the worst loss of the season, basically, for Iowa State. Just unacceptable loss, really, at home that badly against Kansas State. And now Iowa State does have their injured players back. So a little bit of a different lineup for Iowa State coming into that one. Tennessee, of course, they're coming off a couple of big games. They had the letdown after they beat Alabama. I played Ole Miss in this game. They did lose the game. Now they are coming back home, though. And it is senior night for Tennessee, and they're playing this South Carolina team that's been a little bit more competitive coming down the stretch here. So maybe Tennessee will be focused on this game. South Carolina coming off upsetting Arkansas, I believe, at home. Just a ridiculous game that they pulled off there, almost winning by 20 points. Horrible performance from Arkansas. And then they played Georgia. This game was a lot closer as it came down the wire. They were hanging with Georgia as well. Now they have to go on the road to Tennessee. I think it might be more of a bounce-back spot for Tennessee, and it is senior night, so I might slightly lean that way. But the only problem with it is that these teams both like to play defense, and I think they both play pretty slow. So that's not very conducive to laying a huge number like Tennessee is laying here. Down from 15.5 to 15 with reduced juice, though. 79% of tickets, only 76% of the cash on Tennessee. So the market read looks to be against Tennessee. I won't play it. Let's keep moving on, man. Let's keep going. My next play, first regular season play. We got to get through these, man. I hate how long these videos are. Princeton minus 7.5. Let's go. This is a game where there's some angles here that you might not see, just kind of on the surface here. Princeton is up from 8 to 8 with juice, so the money is coming in on Princeton. You might have to lay above 7.5 now, but between 7.5 and 8, there's not that much of a difference. I like this. I mean, they're definitely the better team over Penn. They are at home. 88% of tickets, 92% of the cash. So they are public, but I don't know if the public is really focusing on an Ivy League game with this slate here, with all these other games going on, an Ivy League regular season game. But I think this game is definitely meaningful to Princeton, which is why I'm going to do this. Penn is coming off a blowout win, I think, over, or not a blowout win, but they won against Columbia, But now they're playing a third straight road game, so that's pretty difficult, man. A third straight road game, never really an easy spot. Coming off a win over Columbia, although Columbia is not very good this year. They swept the season series. I mean, Columbia, I told you, after that good out-of-conference performance that Columbia had, they have been horrific in the Ivy. They're not good. So Penn is coming off that win. Penn, by the way, they took Princeton basically to the wire at Penn, or this might have been at the Palestra. I don't know. Yeah, it was at the Palestra in Philadelphia, which I think is, I don't think that's Penn's, is that Penn's normal venue? Maybe it is. I don't even know. I don't know anymore, man. I think whatever it is kind of a weird venue. Princeton had kind of a bad game in this game. They did dominate the rebounding aspect of the game, but they had a ton of turnovers. They got to clean that up a little bit. They didn't shoot that well from the field. So Princeton did have some issues in this game. They were still winning the whole game, though, but Penn made it really close, and then Penn almost got out of there with a win. So I do think that is maybe going to stick in Princeton's mind. Princeton's going to remember that, but The other reason I like Princeton here, though, is I think they're also going to be focused. Well, not only because it's also senior night for them, and they're coming off an ugly, ugly loss by 32 points at Cornell. Terrible, terrible loss for Princeton. Now they're coming back home, which I think is going to be a major bounce back spot. It's senior night, but the other thing is, in the Ivy League, only the top 4 teams get into the conference tournament, man. So I think Princeton needs to win this game to ensure that they lock up the 4 seed here as well, man. And I think they can also move up, too, and avoid Yale. So I think they might be able to overtake Dartmouth. I don't know about Cornell. Let me see. It depends on who those teams are playing. Let me see. Princeton has split the season series with Dartmouth, so I don't know how that's going to work. They lost both games to Cornell, so I don't think they're going to have the tiebreaker against Cornell. Against Brown, let me see. They beat Brown once. Did they lose them the other time? Yeah, so they've split the season series with Brown, so I think Brown might be able to leap them, and I don't know about Harvard. They beat Harvard once. They beat Harvard twice, so I think they do have the tiebreaker against Harvard, but I think Brown is still an issue. So I think there are a lot of reasons why Princeton does actually want to show up in this game, and I know they're laying points here, but they are the better team. I think Ken Baum has them winning this game by more than what this number is. I think this might be the 10-point line that he has here. Princeton, yeah, I know he has them as one of the luckiest teams in the nation, and I usually don't want to play in a team like that. Number 2 in luck, awful. But they're the way better team here. They slow the pace down. They're a decently balanced team. He has them only winning by 7, but I think in a spot like this, yeah, I mean, they're obviously the better team. Penn is way down at 283rd in the nation. I know they're on the unluckier side, but they're really, really bad defensively. They play slow. Let me see. Princeton plays, yeah, both teams like to play slow, but whatever. I mean, I'm going to be on Princeton here for all the reasons I just said. Just it's a situational play. The luck factor does worry me a little bit, but I think that's going to be, that will be a play there. I mean, I don't think that is going to be a play. Let's keep getting this done, man. Alabama and Auburn. I don't really want to talk about Wake just because I think they're probably not really a bubble team anymore. Georgia Tech's been kind of on fire, and Wake really kind of needed to go into Duke and win that game, and they got absolutely annihilated in that game, so I just don't know. Number 7, Alabama. Number 1, Auburn in the basketball edition of the Iron Bowl. Oh, actually, this is a play for me. Auburn -8. I'm going to lay the points with Auburn, even though, yes, I know it is road revenge for Alabama because Alabama lost at home to Auburn, but I don't think this game was really that misleading, man. I mean, Auburn had the lead the whole game pretty much, although Alabama did come back and actually tie the game late in the game. But other than that, Auburn was leading this whole game. Auburn really protected the ball well, even though they were on the road. Yes, I know Alabama had a bad shooting performance, so I don't know. Maybe a little bit of an outlier there. You don't expect Alabama to shoot that badly from three-point range, really. Alabama did win the rebound battle, though. And now they're going to be on the road this time, though. I like Auburn at home, though, man. This is going to be on ESPN. Alabama's coming off. They're facing a slew of tough games in a row. Look at how many tough games they played in a row, man. I think the steam has got to run out at some point. Having to go back on the road, 2 road games in 3 games. They lost that game at Tennessee at the buzzer, and then they had Florida at home, and Florida beat them in another highly publicized game. Now they get Auburn. I think they're going to be the more tired team here. Auburn, I think, is kind of in a bounce-back mode because they just lost to Texas A&M, and I was on A&M in that game. I told you. Second straight road game coming off winning at Kentucky, which was a big win for Auburn because their program almost never wins at Rupp Arena, and they did, and they had this huge game against Alabama up next. So I thought it was a really bad spot, a sandwich spot for Auburn in that game against Texas A&M. They lost by double digits, and they lost that game pretty badly. The game wasn't really close, so I think this is a bounce-back spot for Auburn. I like Auburn in this game. It looks like the public is coming in on Alabama, even though they do have more of the cash percentage on them a little bit. Auburn down from 8 to 8 with reduced juice, so I'm a little bit worried that the line has moved a little bit and the cash percentage is a little bit on Alabama. But this does look like a line where people are going to look at this and say, wait a minute, Alabama-Auburn, this is a top 10 matchup here, and Alabama's getting 7 points, or getting 8 points here, and Auburn just lost, so they show themselves to be a little bit vulnerable. I think the public sentiment is going to be that they kind of want to take the points with Alabama, and you don't want to look for public underdogs, man, which hopefully is what Alabama is going to be in this game for my sake. Now it's 59% of tickets and cash on Alabama. But again, because of the situation, I'm going to play Auburn here. Auburn is the much better defensive team as well, and both teams very, very good offensively. This is the game where I think Ken Baum actually has this game at 10. I think he has Auburn winning by 10. Even though he has Alabama 6, he just has a big gap between like the top few teams and then kind of the rest of the teams. Alabama just not as great defensively. They also play way faster than Auburn does. Auburn does play somewhat fast, but Auburn might try to slow the game down a little bit here because Alabama likes to go so fast, just to kind of throw them out of the rhythm. And I know we're laying points here, but the spot kind of dictates it. I think Auburn also is the better team, so that's what we're going with there. Let's keep going. Seton Hall and UConn is only interesting because this could be a major revenge angle for UConn because they lost at Seton Hall, which was their worst loss of the season as a 13.5-point favorite or something. Terrible loss at Seton Hall. But UConn is coming off that big win over Marquette. But it is also senior night, and because they lost at Seton Hall not that long ago, they may still show up focused here. Seton Hall, I mean, they're just playing out the stretch. I don't know if every team in the Big East makes the conference tournament or not, so I don't know how to even gauge that. But Seton Hall obviously is the way worse team. Connecticut, 17.5-point favorite, though, and they're actually down to 17.5 with reduced juice. 56% of tickets and only 50% of the cash on them. So Connecticut, the money actually looks like it's coming in against them a little bit. So I don't know how I would gauge that game, really. But there is a revenge motive. It is senior night. But then again, Seton Hall and UConn both play absolutely ridiculously slow. So I think it might be an issue there as far as laying that many points with a UConn team that likes to play really, really slow, even though they are efficient offensively and not great defensively. Maryland coming off that big win over Michigan, man. But now it is senior night, and it is a revenge spot for them because they actually lost at Northwestern. So Maryland's going to be looking for revenge here. So even though they're coming off a big win, maybe they are going to show up for this game. Northwestern, they're going to be in the Big Ten tournament, I think. Well, actually, I don't know because they're only one game up above some of these other teams. So I don't know. I don't know how the tiebreaker is going to work out. So I don't know if they need to play to make sure that they get into the conference tournament or not. But they are coming off a tough game, too, with their senior night against UCLA. They played a good game, only lost by 4, and now they're going out on the road to Maryland. So tough spot for them. I think Maryland would be the way to look in this game. They're laying 11 points, 86% of tickets, 88% of the cash coming in. Maryland definitely the better team, especially with Northwestern down a couple of their better players. So that's kind of the way I would lean in that one. And then Liberty at Western Kentucky. Liberty in this Conference USA here, they're fighting with Jacksonville State still, and I guess Middle Tennessee for seeding at the very least, and if you care about winning the regular season title. I don't know if they do, but this is going to be a tough game, man. It's a second straight road game for Liberty. They just beat Middle Tennessee, who is a good team as well in the conference, and I believe they already beat Western Kentucky. Or no, they lost, excuse me. So it's a road revenge spot, excuse me. They lost at home as 9.5-point favorites to Western Kentucky. So my mistake, it is actually a road revenge spot. Western Kentucky, I don't know that they can really improve themselves that much here. Western Kentucky, I think, yeah, it is senior night for them, though. It's senior night for them. And they're playing, like, basically the best team in the conference. So I do think they're still going to show up. They're coming off an easy win over FIU. I don't know what I would do in this game. Liberty is public, but they're up from 2-3 with juice. So it seems like maybe some play on that road revenge angle there. And because Liberty and Jacksonville State are both still fighting to be the 1 seed here. If that matters that much, I don't know, really. 86% of tickets, 99% of the cash. Coming in, 1 seed in the Conference USA tournament, I should say. Coming in on Liberty. So the market read is on the Liberty side. I don't know, man. It is senior night for Western Kentucky, though. But Liberty is definitely the better team, so I don't know. And I don't know that Western Kentucky can really improve their standing going into the conference tournament. I will play one game in this conference, and it is Jacksonville State -3. I'm going to fade Kennesaw, who I did play against Liberty not that long ago. Jacksonville State's up from 3-4. I apologize, man. When I get some of these numbers, if I'm on a side that the professionals agree with, especially in like a smaller conference like this, sometimes these lines will move a bit, and that is the case here, up from 3-4 with juice. I mean, I still like this side, so do with that information what you will. Kennesaw, I don't think is in a great spot here, and Jacksonville State, I think is going to want this game a little bit more. Even though Kennesaw, maybe they can improve their standing a little bit. I don't know that they care that much about seeding. They probably do care that it is a big game, that they're going on the road to face Jacksonville State, but they're playing 3 straight road games, and they're coming off beating Liberty, man. That was a huge win at Liberty. I was on Kennesaw in that game because Liberty was in a bad spot in that game, in my opinion. I think Liberty was in a sandwich spot. I think they were coming off a game against maybe Middle Tennessee or something, some other big game here. Or no, they were coming off Jacksonville State, I think, and they had Middle Tennessee up. Now, whatever it was. They had Middle Tennessee up after that, who they played the middle of this week, I think. I think that's what it was. Kennesaw pulled off the 9.5-point upset there, so now they're coming off that upset, having to go to Jacksonville State, and they already beat Jacksonville State by 12 at home. So it is actually a little bit of in-season revenge for Jacksonville State. And Jacksonville State had a bad shooting game, even though I know Kennesaw did dominate the boards here. Jacksonville State, 36.2% from the floor, 25% from 3. Terrible shooting game for Jacksonville State. I expect a better performance here from them. It is senior night for Jacksonville State. I just lost my place. I don't know where they are. It's senior day for them. It's in the afternoon on ESPN+. So I expect they're going to show up. Senior day with revenge, and they're actually still playing potentially for the 1 seed and for the regular season title. I believe is still in play here because Liberty could potentially lose. Give me Jacksonville State for all those reasons, and they are the better team. I think Ken Pom does have them winning this game by 3 or 4. I forget what it is, but we can look quickly at also the fact, even though I know Jacksonville State's high up in luck index, but I think, I don't know if Kennesaw is or not, but Jacksonville State, 296th. So they're a slow-down team, and they're actually almost in the top 100 in Ken Pom's rankings. They're just outside the top 100, both offense and defense. Kennesaw is actually the worst of the 2 teams. They're better defensively than offensively, significantly worse offensively. They're a little bit high in luck index as well. And Kennesaw likes to play fast, and Jacksonville State may be able to slow this game down at home and throw Kennesaw out of their element. Ken Pom does have this line at 4, so that is the way that I will look here. He has them as the better team at home, so I think we're actually getting a little bit of a short number there with the 3. Maybe not once it's up to 4, but we'll see. And then we have the bubble battle, Ohio State and Indiana. Ohio State's coming off a barn burner, man, which was Ohio State's senior night, 2 overtime game. Unfortunately for me, because I laid the points with Ohio State in this one, and they had the lead all game, so it's like, come on, Ohio State, just finish the game off. I think they should have covered the game for me, and then they potentially could have covered in overtime, doing double OT at least. Didn't do it. They still won and didn't cover in double overtime. They're coming off that barn burner double overtime game, which really is going to hurt Nebraska. That puts Nebraska on the outside of the bubble looking in. I think it puts Ohio State in the tournament right now, but they're not that securely in, but neither is Indiana. And now Ohio State, after that game, is having to go to Indiana. And Indiana, coming off a loss on the Pacific Coast and now coming back home here. It's senior night for Indiana, and it's going to be Mike Woodson's last game coaching in this venue, on this floor. So that might be a big deal. As since he announced his resignation, they've really kind of turned it around and played better. So it's been a spark for them. So I kind of like the Indiana side here. I think they're kind of in a bounce-back spot coming up that loss. Kind of an expected loss as an underdog on the road out on the Pacific Coast. Second straight road game. Both teams need this, man, to try to get into the tournament. Indiana up from 1.5 to 2.5, but 79% of tickets, only 67% of the cash coming in Indiana. So that does worry me a little bit. What does also worry me is that I believe Ken Pom does have Ohio State as a significantly better team over Indiana. Let me see. Well, he has them 11 ranking spots higher. So I don't know what to do with that. Both teams play a similar kind of mid-tempo pace. He does have Ohio State as the unluckier team, and he has Ohio State as the better offensive team, but Indiana as the slightly better defensive team. So take from all that what you will. That's going to be a game with big bubble implications potentially there, so we'll see what happens. Next up is another play for me, and it's finally I'll give you an underdog. How about that? I've given you all favorites so far. I think that's weird for me to have 5 straight favorites, but here's an underdog for you. LSU plus 7.5 against number 22 Texas A&M. I like the spot here. A&M up from 6 to 7.5, so mine moved up, but I think we're just getting extra value here. A&M is obviously the public team with 80% of the tickets on them and only 60% of the cash coming in on A&M. And we know A&M is coming off beating Auburn, number 1 in the country. Huge win for Texas A&M. Texas A&M, they might be looking ahead to the SEC tournament at this point, man. I mean, they're in good shape as far as that's concerned. I mean, they're going to be in the SEC tournament, obviously. Going to have one of those like middle seeds in the tournament. They're going to be in the NCAA tournament. There's no worry. No worry about any of that. They already beat LSU by double digits at home by 11, and Texas A&M slowed that game down. But now they're coming off that huge win over Auburn. I think this is going to be letdown mode here. That was a massive win on senior night. I had Texas A&M plus the points in that game because I like those home defensive underdogs. But now they're a defensive road favorite, which is a different story. When this Texas A&M team, they really struggle offensively a lot, man. And now they're a slow-down team who plays better defense than offense. Laying points on the road, not a good recipe. And LSU is actually a fast-paced team. So LSU might be able to speed the game up a little bit. They're in revenge. They're getting points at home, and it is senior night for them. And not only that, but they're coming off a horrendous loss by 31 points at Kentucky. That loss just looks embarrassing, man. You lose like that to anybody, even though I know it's Kentucky at Rupp Arena, you are still going to want to bounce back and play a lot better than you did in that previous game. You're playing at home for your seniors, man. I mean, I think this is the right spot. I think it's a bad spot for Texas A&M. It's a letdown spot. There are some positives. It's a bounce-back spot. Senior night for LSU, who might be able to speed the game up a little bit. A&M, I don't trust their offense to be able to do this as a road favorite like this in a spot like this. Give me LSU plus the points in that one. All right, let's keep going. Let's see. I'm not going to talk about some of these teams that I consider to be kind of off the bubble at this point. Xavier is on the bubble. I have them in the first 4 out, I think, right now. Is that right? I forget where I have them. But they're on a roll right now. They've won 6 straight games. Now it's senior night for them. It is technically in-season revenge for Providence and road revenge because Xavier did win at Providence. But I think you're going to continue to see a motivated effort out of Xavier. The problem is they're laying a ton of points here. Providence, yeah, they're playing out the stretch. I think they're still going to be in the Big East tournament. But I think all the teams get in. I don't even know. So we'll see what happens with that. But they're probably going to be motivated as well, though, because it is road revenge. I mean, they might want to play spoiler to Xavier. So we'll see what happens here. Xavier, they need to keep winning to make their to ensure that their resume is good because they really can't afford to lose this game. But that does mean there'll be a little bit of pressure on them. And in a situation like that, I don't think I'd want to lay a huge number like this. They're up from 11 to 11.5 with juice, though. Money is coming in on them. 93% of the cash, 88% of the tickets. So, again, we will see how that goes. Arizona at Kansas. Arizona's number 24 in the country. They are going to face Kansas here, and they're coming off a rivalry win after they lost on the road to Iowa State. They just beat their rival, Arizona State. A big win for them, really. Now they're going on the road to face Kansas, which I think is the only time they face Kansas this year. Kansas definitely been struggling, man, but maybe this is the spot where they're going to bounce back a little bit. They're playing senior night at home against a ranked team, so it is technically an unranked home favorite here is the situation for Kansas, up from 2 to 4 with juice now. So if you like Kansas, you've kind of missed the boat on the best numbers there, as you're going to have to lay a bigger price with them. Ken Baum, I believe, as Arizona's the better team, by 9 ranking spots. So I don't know, but both teams like to play somewhat fast. Kansas is the better defense. Arizona's the much, much better offense. So Kansas, they do struggle offensively. So laying points like this, especially with the number having moved up, I don't know that I really want to do it, even though I probably lean to the Kansas side here. When it's up to 4 with juice, I don't really want to do it. 68% of tickets, 82% of the cash coming in on them. And Kansas is coming off a big game against Houston, where they were in that game. They're coming off 2 games, like close games they were in against Texas Tech and Houston. So they're playing 3 big games in a row. So that does kind of make it a somewhat difficult spot for Kansas as well. So I just can't bring myself to do it. I can't lay the points, even though it does look like, market-wise, it looks like the right side. It looks like they're almost begging you to take the points with Arizona as one of those ranked road underdogs there. But we will see. West Virginia is a big home favorite against UCF. West Virginia trying to make sure that their tournament spot is secure. I don't know what else to tell you about this. West Virginia, 7.5-point favorite, 65% of tickets, 77% of the cash coming in on them. The lean looks like it is towards the West Virginia side, but again, I won't be touching it. Ole Miss is at Florida. This is unfortunate because both of these teams are coming off such huge games that I was like, I want to fade both of these teams, and it just so happens they're playing each other. Florida coming off that big game against Alabama, huge win for them. But they are coming back home. It is senior night for them against Ole Miss. I don't think they played Ole Miss otherwise this year. Is that right? No, this is the only time they played them. But they are coming off a couple of huge wins in a row against A&M and then Alabama. Monster win there. But coming back home for senior night, I think still puts them in a better spot than Ole Miss is in, because Ole Miss won their game on senior night. I was on Ole Miss in that game the other night. I thought it was a bad spot for Tennessee, in kind of a letdown spot there after that buzzer beater win over Alabama. So Ole Miss pulled off that huge win. That was a more monumental win, I think, for Ole Miss, and now they have to go out on the road. So I think the spot is worse for Ole Miss. So the lean would be to Florida slightly. They're up from 11 to 12.5 with reduced juice, but 84% of tickets, 77% of the cash on them. So the cash percentage is less on the Florida side. Again, I don't know exactly what I would want to do with that one. I mean, it potentially might make sense to start looking towards the over, because Florida does play really, really fast. But Mississippi does like to play defense. Both teams do play really good defense, so I'd be a little bit concerned about that. But with both teams coming off big wins, they might be a little bit tired. So you might see some tiredness come into play and affect the defense. Total up from 157 to 157. Juice to the over a little bit. We'll see. Again, we'll see what happens. I always say that, but we will see what happens. Duke is at North Carolina. A big rivalry, man. And Duke, the spread is such that it's not totally out of the question that North Carolina might be able to do something here. Obviously, it is revenge. Duke basically embarrassed them at Duke, at Cameron Indoor or whatever, not long ago. I mean, this game, Duke only won by 17, but Duke was winning this game by 30 points late in the game, and I think they just let up, and North Carolina just got some garbage score in there. That game was an absolute blowout, but Duke, I mean, they're going on the road. It's going to be senior night for North Carolina. North Carolina needs the game more because they are on the bubble. I mean, Duke obviously does not need this. Duke, hilariously, though, still has not wrapped up the regular season title in the ACC, because Duke, Clemson, and Louisville just keep running through this conference. It's really not very good otherwise. UNC has put it on, though, and they've turned it on and had a nice win streak here with 6 straight wins, although against competition inferior to them. I haven't faced any of the better teams during this stretch. And yeah, when they've stepped up in class, they've done bad. They lost badly at Clemson as well. But this is senior night against Duke, man. North Carolina, again, they're getting a ton of points on ESPN here. They got more to play for. Again, because they're trying to get into the tournament. Duke is down from 11 to 9.5. I saw it at 10 earlier. So a lot of money agreeing with me and coming into North Carolina. I do agree with taking the points with them here. Duke, 52% of the tickets on them, 70% of the cash coming in on UNC. I do agree with that side. North Carolina, I think, also likes to play fast, whereas Duke likes to play slow. So, and North Carolina, pretty unlucky, according to KenPom. They're actually a top 20 offensive team. They're just not very good defensively. Of course, Duke, very, very good on both sides of the ball. Duke likes to play slow, though, and in a spot like this, North Carolina might be able to get this game sped up a little bit, because that's what they want to do. Throw Duke out of their element a little bit. I would take the points with UNC if I was going to play it. I lean to that side. And then we got, let's see. I'm losing it, man. Texas Tech at Arizona State. Texas Tech coming off a couple of wins here, going on the road. I mean, Texas Tech, the one thing that might keep them focused is that Arizona State almost beat them in Lubbock at Texas Tech. So we will see how this goes as far as, like, will they be focused here? But it is senior night for Arizona State, so they should be focused for that reason. But Arizona State is coming off that big rivalry game against their rival Arizona, which they lost. But now they've lost 3 games in a row, and they lost their last game on this home floor. So I do think there are some reasons why Arizona State will show up motivated there. Texas Tech up from 9 to 11 with juice, though. So the money is coming in on Texas Tech. 86% of tickets, 91% of the cash coming in on them. Again, not a game that I'm going to want to get involved in, that I'm really going to want to play. USC is at UCLA, and USC, I mean, they have pretty much, I think, ensured that they're going to make the Big Ten tournament at the very least. This is a big-time rivalry game. UCLA is returning home to the West Coast after playing not great at Northwestern, but still getting the win. They already beat USC on the road, so it is road revenge, though, for USC. And USC, I think, is coming off some ugly loss, if I'm not mistaken. Let me see. No, they beat Washington, actually, which is actually good because that's going to kill their losing momentum. Beating Washington like that is, I think, just going to give them some confidence coming into this game. So when it's all said and done, maybe a slight lean towards the USC side here. And UCLA likes to play really slow. They play slow defensive style, which is not conducive to laying a lot of points at home, or laying a lot of points in general, I should say. Down from 10 to 9.5, 58% of tickets, 71% of the cash coming in on USC. I agree with that. Big bubble game in the Red River Rivalry Basketball Edition with Oklahoma and Texas. A lot of different factors here. Oklahoma lost this game at home, so they do have road revenge against Texas for losing that game at home, which I thought was a good spot for Oklahoma, and they blew it. But then you look at this, and Oklahoma's coming off a big win in their senior night, beating Missouri. That was a huge upset win for Oklahoma against a pretty decent Missouri team, pretty good Missouri team. And now Oklahoma has to go back out on the road for a second road game in 3 games. And they've been really playing a bunch of tough games, man. They beat Mississippi State, played Kentucky to within 1 point, Ole Miss to within 3, and then beat Missouri. Now, this is a brutal, brutal stretch, man. So even though it is road revenge for them, I might lean to Texas a little bit. Both teams need this. Both teams need this game, though, man. But Texas has been on a worse run, but they did get a win at Mississippi State as an underdog in that game. So that was a big win for Texas. So they are coming off a big win. So I don't think they're going to be in a letdown spot, though, after that, because this is senior night. Big rivalry game. Both teams need to win this game to pad their resume. All that being said, I would lean to Texas, but there are just factors kind of going both ways here that make me want to stay off of it. Texas up from 4 with juice to 5 with juice, so the market read is on Texas. I would lean that way if you forced me to give you a lean on this one. 64% of the cash on Texas, 50% of tickets evenly split. Again, big tournament bubble implications there too, as both teams, I think, are on the outside looking in right now. I believe I would say that in my opinion. We'll see what happens. Number 3, Houston at Baylor. Oh, man, this is an interesting one. I am on Baylor in this game. I think I actually skipped one of my plays, so I'll jump back up to it. Did I? Yeah, I apologize. I skipped one of my games. I'll go back to it. This game is a big game for Baylor, man. Houston, maybe not so much, but this looks, again, I think it looks, you can get actually probably still 4.5 out there. The line's down from 5 to 4.5 with juice. I don't like that the cash percentage is on Houston right now, even though the lines moved down a little bit, but they are going to be very public. 74% of tickets, 81% of the cash on Houston right now, but once we get to this game at 10 p.m. Eastern, I think you might see the cash percentage turn around a little bit. I think this looks way too easy to lay the points with Houston here, man. I mean, they're one of the top teams in the country. There's no doubt about that. They're really, really, really good. They might be my champion pick. I mean, we'll see. But Houston, they're coming off a big win over Kansas. They swept the season series against Kansas. That was their senior day. But what do they really have left to play for here, man? I mean, I know they're going to Baylor. They already beat Baylor, I think, at home, right? When was that game? Let me see. Bay. Yeah, they already beat Baylor at home by 11 points. So I don't know if they're really going to pay that much attention to Baylor for that reason. So this is a revenge spot for Baylor. Houston has such a big lead in the Big 12. They've already clinched, and this is already the case, and I know they've continued to play well, but again, what do they have to play for at this point other than, yeah, a 1 seed, whatever? They've clinched the Big 12 already. They're going into the Big 12 tournament, which is going to be their next game, is going to be whatever their first game is in the Big 12 tournament. I think they're going to be starting to prepare for that thing. So I don't see much reason they're really going to show up in this game, man. They have a big lead in the Big 12. They've already wrapped it up. They've already clinched it. Like I said, Baylor, on the other hand, they're a bubble team right now, man. I have them in the tournament right now. I have them in the round of 64. I don't think they need to worry as much as some of these other teams do, but you know we're going to have bid stealers and stuff like that. So Baylor, they got to keep winning, and they've reeled off 2 wins in a row against some inferior opponents, Oklahoma State and TCU, on the road, although Baylor is still a favorite there. Winning 2 games to give them, I think, some momentum and some confidence coming into this game. And this is, again, senior night, getting points for a team that's going to be motivated. And both of these teams play really, really slow and really and like to play that really slow style, man, is what I wanted to say. Houston plays really, really good defensively. Is that really the style that you want with laying points on the road? A slow-paced defensive team, even though I know Houston's really good offensively this year too. That's not really what I would want. And again, the situation sets up nicely for Baylor. Baylor is way down in luck index, according to KenPom. They're one of the most unlucky teams in the country. They face a very difficult schedule, 9th in the nation. They face the number 1 defensive schedule in the nation, so they have not had it easy. Baylor actually a top 20 offensive efficiency team, so they can actually kind of score to kind of hang in this game. And yeah, their defense isn't as good, but we're getting points at home. For all those reasons, man, give me Baylor plus the points. And again, it just looks way too easy to lay those points with Houston in a spot like that. Yeah, give me Baylor. Utah's at BYU. Oh, sorry, I got to jump back. I'll jump back right after I finish talking about the rest of these games. Utah's at BYU. And some of these games are about to kick off, man. Just let me make sure that my NHL game that I have isn't going to be, well, we have until 12:30, but I don't have one of the 12:30 games, so I don't think I'm even going to talk about them, so whatever. Utah, this is a big rivalry game as well. Utah already actually won the first game at home against BYU, so it is revenge for BYU, but I don't know, man. I mean, Utah going on the road to Provo. I mean, it's going to be BYU's senior night. BYU, though, could be a letdown spot there for BYU, so even though it is senior night for BYU. It is revenge for BYU for losing earlier to Utah. It is a rivalry game, but Utah, I think at this point, realizes they're the little brother to BYU here. They're the worst of these two teams, so I think they're going to really want to try to get this game and spoil BYU's senior night. BYU's coming off a huge win over Iowa State. Pretty unexpected win, unexpected run that they've been on here. So I would probably lean to taking the points with Utah here just because I think it is a major letdown spot, even though there are some motivating factors for BYU here. They're down from 11.5 to, or up from 11.5 to 11.5 with juice, but 71% of tickets and only 66% of the cash on BYU. So the market read looks like it is in agreement with the Utah side. Nevada at San Diego State is a pretty big game as well in the Mountain West. San Diego State, they're kind of a bubble team right now. I have them as one of the last teams in the round of 64 right now, hanging in there, but they just lost to UNLV and got season swept by UNLV. I thought that was a decent spot to look to San Diego State. I didn't play it. I said that I leaned to San Diego State in that one, and they did not get it done in the road revenge angle. Now they're back at home for senior day. They did already beat Nevada on the road pretty easily, but man, I mean, I just think in a spot like this, both teams are slow down teams, and I just think San Diego State is better at it than Nevada is. Nevada going out on the road. These home teams usually tend to have a little bit of more of an edge in some of these games. In Nevada, after that rivalry game where they lost UNLV, they just played really close in their senior night against New Mexico, which I think I lost in that one. I think I had Nevada in that game. Huge performance for them. And now they have to go out on the road down to San Diego. And San Diego State, I think, has a little bit more reason to show up because they're battling to make sure that they get into the tournament. They're up from 6-6 with juice. San Diego State is 68% of tickets, only 64% of the cash. So they do have less of the cash on them, but I would probably lean San Diego State's way there. And then the spot that I missed, I'm sorry, my other play is also an underdog. So I do have 3 underdogs and 5 favorites. Somewhat unlike what I usually do, but I'm going to be on Fairfield in the MAAC, where I just completely skipped over the MAAC, by the way. I will point out in the MAAC, Iona is laying points today against Sacred Heart or whatever, and Iona is actually the better of those two teams, so I would look Iona's way in that one, just kind of pointing that out really briefly there. I like Iona in whatever situation that is. When I looked at it, I don't even remember. But let's talk about Fairfield, because I like the spot for Fairfield here. Quinnipiac is laying points on the road, which is not what I like. Quinnipiac down from 7-7 with reduced juice. This is at 7 p.m., so we'll see what happens with the percentages. Although Quinnipiac right now does have 54% of the cash on them, with 56% of tickets coming in on Fairfield. But I don't agree with what the market looks like right now. Quinnipiac, they've wrapped up the 1 seed in the MAAC, man. I'm pretty sure they've clinched the regular season title because Merrimack has finished their play. Merrimack doesn't have any games left, and Quinnipiac is 1.5 games ahead of them. So even if Quinnipiac loses this game, they're still ahead of Merrimack. Marist can't catch them either with 2 games behind, each with 1 game left. So Quinnipiac, I'm almost positive. I mean, you can check me if I'm wrong, but I believe they've wrapped up the regular season title here. They're coming off tough games against Merrimack and Mount St. Mary's. There are two decent teams in this conference. They beat Mount St. Mary's, which I don't know if that was a completion of a season sweep. I think it was. Yeah, it was. They actually destroyed them on the road. So now they're playing a second road game, over the course of 3 games, going down to Fairfield with nothing to really play for, in my opinion, for Quinnipiac. Fairfield, it's senior night. They already lost at Quinnipiac 81-69 by 12 points, so they lost already, so it's a little bit of in-season revenge. And Quinnipiac is returning home from 2 road games. They lost both of them, so I think they might be in a little bit of a bounce-back spot here. Coming back home to their place on senior day, they're going to want to play well, I think, in this and have something to play for here. And the other thing they have to play for, I'm pretty sure in the MAAC, I think the last 3 teams in this conference don't make the conference tournament. You can check me if I'm wrong, but I think 10 teams make this tournament. So Fairfield is sitting in the 10th spot right now, and I think they do have the tiebreaker over Niagara, but I don't think they have it over St. Peter's. Again, you can check me if I'm wrong about all this. I tried to figure all this out, so I do think that's an extra motivator for Fairfield, where they need to win to make sure that they can get into the conference tournament, or they're going to need St. Peter's to lose. Well, let's see. If Fairfield wins, then they will still stay ahead of St. Peter's. But if St. Peter's wins and Fairfield loses, I think St. Peter's can leapfrog them. And St. Peter's, I think, has an easy game where they're a huge favorite, I think, against Canisius. So the scheduling works out really well for St. Peter's here. So Fairfield, I think, is going to be extra motivated for that reason if they want to make the tournament. So you got a Quinnipiac team that I don't think really has anything to play for against a Fairfield team that should be more highly motivated for numerous different reasons that I just laid out, and they're getting a bunch of points at home. So I like all that. Ken Palm, I think, does have this line. What does he have this line? He has Quinnipiac down to the bottom 200 in the nation. He has the line right at 7. Let me see. Quinnipiac, he does have them 68th in luck, so he has them as a lucky team, and he has them 11th in tempo. So they're one of the fastest tempo teams in the nation. I has them not a very good scoring team, though. A pretty bad scoring team and a better defensive team, whereas Fairfield is bad on both sides of the ball. There's no doubt about that, but they do slow the game down. Yes, I know they're also lucky, so Fairfield really, really sucks if they're this bad. And Ken Palm is telling you that they're lucky, but both teams somewhat high in the luck index, and Fairfield at least can try to slow this game down. And if it's a game, again, it's about the spot where if Quinnipiac is not going to really pay attention in this game and Fairfield can slow this game down, which is not what Quinnipiac wants to do, you get a slow-down team with the motivation at home on senior night, getting a bunch of points. That is the way I'm going to look in that game, and that is what I'm doing. And let me just make sure. Houston and Baylor. I looked at Auburn. Again, go pay for Ken Palm, man. Maybe he'll be fine with me, like, going in and out of these paywalled pages here just if I keep saying you should go buy his stuff. He does have Houston winning that game against Baylor by 5, so very close to that 4.5 number. All right. Actually, we got to talk about the other. I'm sorry, man. I missed these other conference tournaments. What am I doing? I think they're just way, way down. Like, I was scrolling down. I'm like, oh, these are regular season, the extra games, so we don't have anything left. But we have the extra card conference tournaments. I apologize. So the American East, and I actually apologize because a couple of these games are already kicking off. I very much apologize. I should have hit these at the very beginning. American East, well, actually, let me talk about these games first as they kick off. The Northeast Conference, St. Francis and Long Island, all these teams have played in the tournament. Now, this is the semifinals. Long Island up from 6.5 to 6.5 with juice. 91% of the cash, 62% of the cash. I mean, they're definitely the better team out of the two, and I just don't have a whole lot else to say about that. And Central Connecticut State against Fairleigh Dickinson up from 9 to 9.5 with juice. I believe the home team, the higher seed, is actually hosting the games on their home floor, too. So the home teams have a bit of an extra edge as well. Long Island's the 2 seed. Central Connecticut State is the 1 seed, and they are definitely the best team in this conference. 76% tickets, 89% of the cash. I don't expect Central Connecticut to lose that game, although anything can happen, really. But the money looks like it's coming in on both favorites there. Don't have a whole lot else to say. In Johnson City, Tennessee, we got the semifinals in the Big South. High Point, obviously the best team in this conference, up from 6.5 to 9. So huge line move on High Point against Radford. Radford, both teams played yesterday, but High Point had a much, much easier, just cakewalk game. Whoever they beat yesterday, I forget who it was. Radford, I think, had a closer game against maybe, who did they beat? Presbyterian? I don't even remember. 79% of tickets, 89% of the cash coming in on High Point. So the money is coming in on High Point. Again, they are the better team, and I think Radford is actually somewhat overrated. So I think it's it's better for High Point that they get this matchup than having to play Winthrop or Asheville in this round. So High Point should win and make the final, and then maybe they'll be able to win against either Winthrop or UNC Asheville, who I think might beat each other up in this game a little bit, man, because these are both pretty good teams in this conference. Winthrop down from 1.5 to 1, so the odds makers lining Winthrop as if they're the better team. They may be. 70% of tickets, 84% of the cash coming in on Winthrop. So they do have the money coming in on them, even though the line has moved down a little bit. They do have the cash percentage. Asheville, of course, I think is going to be kind of the team that people would want to play if they look at this because they recognize the name UNC Asheville. They're in the tournament fairly often. Winthrop less so. I mean, these are not the Greg Marshall days anymore when he built that program up and then he went to Wichita State and now he's nowhere. So I don't know. We need Greg Marshall back, man. Go fix another program, man. Where are you? Come on, Greg. So I don't know about this, but the market indicators look like the lean would slightly beat a Winthrop, but I don't know. And then we do have the tournament that I skipped over, the American East, are in the quarterfinals. So all the teams are playing except NJIT, who I think the way this works is one team doesn't make the tournament. It's a 9-team conference, and I think NJIT is the only team that doesn't make it. So sad. New Hampshire and Vermont, I mean, this is a total mismatch. New Hampshire is terrible. Besides NJIT, I think New Hampshire is probably the worst team in this conference. I think they're worse than UMBC. Vermont down, though, from 14.5 with ridiculous juice down to 13.5 with juice. So the money is actually fading Vermont here. 78% of tickets, only 59% of cash. I mean, I know Vermont has that name behind them. Vermont is the team that, they have that name recognition behind them. They win this conference a lot, so they're the team the public's going to want to come in on. And it looks like the cash is disagreeing with that, and the move has been against that a little bit. So the market indicators are kind of on the New Hampshire side. Bryant is the 1 seed. Vermont is the 2 seed, by the way. So that's actually the 2-7. Bryant, UMBC is actually the 1-8. And the home teams are, as you can see here, it says bottom teams are home in those conferences. So in this conference, the home team, the better seed is the home team in these games as well. So UMBC at Bryant. Bryant actually up from 13 with juice to 15 with reduced juice. 55% of tickets, 77% of the cash. So the money is actually coming in on Bryant. Bryant is the best team in this conference. UMBC, I mean, people might remember their name because they pulled off that first 16-1 upset in history over Virginia. Obviously, we're years removed from that. This is not the same UMBC team. I would default to leaning to the market read on that one and expect Bryant should easily win that game, but don't have a whole lot to tell you about that. The most interesting of these games is UMass Lowell and Maine, because UMass Lowell has fallen all the way down to the 6th seed, but I told you they're a pretty dangerous 6th seed, as I think they're one of the best 4 teams in this conference. It's Vermont, Bryant. Well, Bryant is number 1, Vermont probably 2. Then I think UMass Lowell may be better than Maine, and the odds makers are telling you this because Maine is at home, and they're not even getting full home court. They're down from 2.5 to 1 here, so the money is actually coming in on UMass Lowell. Maine just beat UMass Lowell on the same floor, I think, to finish the regular season with a very similar line in the game, too. So this is a quick kind of a zigzag spot. It's a kind of a rare spot, a weird spot, so why do I not want to play UMass Lowell? Well, because they turn the ball over constantly, and they just are really bad defensively. So I don't know if I quite want to do it, but it is a little bit of a revenge spot for UMass Lowell. And they didn't get blown out. That's the other thing. That was a close game between UMass Lowell and Maine. So if it was a zigzag and it was a real outlier of a spot, like when I came in and played Southern Illinois the other day, because they had gotten annihilated by Indiana State and were playing them again right away. This game, these two teams played was really close, although I agree with the line move, and I still agree with UMass Lowell because they are actually the better of these teams, even though they kept falling down the standings even though I kind of want Maine to win this conference just because their three-point shooting is good, and I like A.J. Lopez. And that's the one drawback with Lowell is they don't defend well at all. They don't defend the three well, and Maine can definitely hit threes. So we'll see what happens in this one. And Binghamton and Albany. Albany up from 6 with heavy juice to 7 with juice. Money coming in on Albany. They're definitely the better team. Binghamton, not very good. Kind of a short travel spot there. Both teams in upstate New York there. This game at Albany, obviously. 75% of tickets, 85% of the cash coming in on Albany. So the money is coming in on Albany. I don't necessarily disagree with it. Albany coming off a tough game, though, where they lost to Vermont. They're playing 3 straight road games, although now they're back at home. So even though they are coming off that tough loss, maybe they will be in a bit of a bounce-back spot here in Binghamton. They're coming off an ugly game, though, losing at home to NJIT. So just situationally, it kind of looks like you might want to start looking towards Binghamton because they're coming off a bad loss, and Albany's coming off a tough game against Vermont. But this is the tournament now. Again, these teams are going to show up to play in the conference tournament. So now I think we're done, right? That was it. We skipped over the SWAC, the horrible conference that I usually don't talk about at all. Let's go over to NHL here. Big NHL Saturday card. I only have one play. Rangers and Ottawa is an interesting one. Ottawa down from -125 to -121, but the Rangers are public. As public's going to look at this and think, how am I getting the Rangers as an underdog right now? As the Rangers have started playing really well. The Rangers are the name team. I mean, they're the team that people are going to want to bet on, especially getting an underdog price, and with them turning their season around right now. 75% of tickets, only 63% of cash on them, though. So the market read looks like it is kind of leaning towards the Ottawa side. The Rangers coming off a tough loss to Washington. Both of these teams are fighting for playoff positioning, man. They're both trying to get into the playoffs. I think the Rangers probably will make it, but Ottawa's coming off a game where they didn't play well, and they almost lost to Chicago, but they were coming off a tough game against Washington. So now they're kind of in a bounce-back spot, in my opinion, coming off that game against Chicago, but they are coming off 2 straight overtime games, which gives me a little bit of hesitation. Maybe they'll be a little bit tired, but I mean, I think that game, they almost lost a game they shouldn't have been close to losing, whereas the Rangers are coming off a real difficult loss against Washington, now having to turn around, play Ottawa. They do have Columbus and then Winnipeg coming up. Columbus tomorrow, and Columbus has actually become more of a threat in the playoff standings, but I don't think the Rangers can really afford to overlook Ottawa here, though, which is the one hesitation that I would have. I would lean to Ottawa here the way the situation sets up, but because both teams coming down the stretch need to win these games to try to get into the playoffs, I would hesitate a little bit. My Boston Bruins are at Tampa Bay. Tampa's up from -250 to -278, 83% of tickets on them, 94% of the cash on Tampa. I mean, what can you do with this? The Bruins just traded away Brad Marchand. He's been a staple of the Bruins. He's been with the Bruins for, it seems like, forever. I think 16 years or something. It's been the only team he's played on. He's old now, and it's very sad to see him not only leave, but become a Florida Panther. I mean, come on. But the Bruins, they're starting to rebuild, so I don't know what we're going to get out of them in this game. I don't know if that's going to spark them for one game or not. And the fact that they're on ABC for this game against the Tampa Bay Lightning, I don't know. I mean, the Lightning have definitely been playing well. They're going to be a playoff team. But they do have Carolina up next, so maybe a little bit of a look ahead. Maybe they'll overlook Boston with how bad Boston has been playing. Boston, they did just play Carolina, though, and only lose by 1 goal. So they are coming off a pretty decent performance there themselves against Carolina. So coming off that game and having to turn around and play another road game in Florida, or not both games in Florida, another road game down in the state of Florida after being in Carolina the game before that. So another straight road game, this one being in Florida. And then with the Panthers up next, which is going to be the Marchand battle back in Boston coming up after this. So I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to try to play this game in any way. Toronto and Colorado is a good game. Colorado up from -145 to -153. 72% of tickets, 74% of the cash coming in on Colorado. So the money is coming in on the Colorado side. Toronto's coming off kind of an ugly loss, even though it was to a good Vegas team, losing 5-2. you tend to want to turn it back around after that, man. And they had lost to San Jose the game before that, started the road trip and didn't bounce back, had a bad performance. Couple days off now to kind of think about it, even though they're going into elevation. I don't know that the spot is that bad for Toronto in this one, really, even though the money looks like it's kind of coming in on the Avs. I don't really know that I would agree with it. And the Avs just annihilated San Jose, that same San Jose team that I believe beat Toronto. So some of the situational aspects of this kind of line up to have me looking towards Toronto, even though Toronto has faced a more difficult schedule recently, so maybe they'll be a little bit more tired. But I don't know what to think about that other than that. My one game I'm going to play, the money does look like it's in agreement with me. I have one reason why I might have slightly hesitated, but I like this. Montreal plus money here. Montreal plus 118 or whatever you can get on this. Calgary's down from minus 140 to minus 134. Calgary, not really that intimidating of a team, to be honest, man, even though I know Montreal probably looks better than they actually are. The record looks better than they actually are, but this is a bad spot for Calgary. And Calgary is a team that you don't really want to lay them as a favorite that often, in my opinion. I don't think, even though, of course, they could win the game, but they don't really win by margin a lot. They play a lot of close games. Calgary, the reason I'm doing is they're coming off a huge road trip, where they played a lot of good teams on this road trip, beating Washington, losing to Tampa, losing to Florida, taking Carolina to overtime, and then taking Dallas into overtime, even though they lost to finish up that road trip. Now they got Montreal when they come back home, and up next they got Vancouver, which is probably going to be a bigger game, kind of a Pacific Northwest Canada battle there. And then Colorado, Toronto, Rangers, Devils. They have a lot of big games coming up next, so I think they might overlook Montreal on a spot like this, man, coming off a big game against Dallas and having to return home from travel. And I say when you return home from travel, a lot of times it tends to be a distracted spot. These guys, they have families and whatever they have to get back to while they're trying to get themselves ready for a game here. Whereas Montreal, I know they're coming off a big game where they took Edmonton into overtime. And yeah, that would be one reason why I would think they'd be in a hangover spot coming off of that. But they did have 2 days off before that. That was the start of a road trip. And the reason why I'm still going to play Montreal here is, even though they are coming off that big game and it did end a win streak for them, I understand all that, but they're already in the province of Alberta here. So their travel is actually way less, with Calgary having to come all the way back up from Texas from a long, long road trip here. Montreal should be the more rested and less traveled team here because they're already in Alberta, man. So they just have to go down from Edmonton to Calgary, a shorter trip for them for this game. I think they may still show up focused for this game against Calgary, because Calgary is a team with a winning record at the very least. 61% of tickets, 73% of the cash coming in on Montreal. That is my favorite and only hockey play of the day here. St. Louis and LA is a weird one because these teams are playing 3 times in a span of 5 games or something you don't usually see. Very, very strange. St. Louis has won the previous 2 of them, which is crazy to think about. The Kings have started really sliding and kind of inexplicable, and they just lost at home in a shootout to the St. Louis team, and now they're going to play them again right now after Kemper had a terrible game against Chicago. He didn't really bounce back, lost again, so we may see Rittich come in and play in this game. I don't know, man, and I think that might help. LA's got to try to do something to try to break this momentum, man. Even though they have Vegas up tomorrow, I don't think you can possibly overlook a St. Louis team that's already just beaten you twice within the last 3 or 4 games, last 2 games. This is a back-to-back spot for the Kings, and I think for St. Louis, I think they played Anaheim in the middle. So they got Anaheim in an LA sandwich, and they still won that game too somehow. So the Blues starting to play really well right now, but I think this is a spot where it would be LA in the revenge spot or pass. The Blues are also on a back-to-back. LA's had multiple days off, and the Blues have had no days off. And they've had a pretty successful road trip so far already. It's revenge for the Kings. It would be Kings or pass in this one. They're up from minus 180 to minus 195. 76% of tickets, 93% of the cash coming in on them. I would probably lay the puck line with the Kings. And because Binnington played again yesterday, you're probably getting Hofer in net. And I know he played well in his last game. The previous couple of games, the previous 4 games that the Blues had him in net, they lost those 4 games, all of them, with Hofer in net. So definitely some reasons to like the Kings in that game. I definitely agree with the Kings there, and a little bit of double revenge there. So that is what I like, and it's revenge from their previous game to a quick turnaround game. Should I actually play it? Do I want to add a play on the Kings? Man. I do kind of want to. Yeah, fuck it. It's a Saturday hockey slate. Let's do it. I don't know what the line is going to be on this, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to play the LA Kings. We'll look for a puck line here. It might be plus money or something. I might split the bet, but we'll see. So I don't know what it's going to be, but it's probably going to be plus money. Actually, let me look right now. Let me see. I can open it up right now. I can tell you what the line is going to be. I'll put it in, and I'll tell you what it's going to be. Let me see here. Try to find the best line here. You see me doing this on the fly, man. Kings. Looks like, yeah, the money's coming in on them. They're 200 on the money line. The spread, you get minus 1.5 at plus 140. You could play them to win in regulation, too, if you wanted to. I usually like to do the split bet. So maybe that's what I'll do here. Or should I just lay the 1.5 at plus 140? No, I guess I'll do a split bet. So it's 1.5 plus 140, and then the money line, unfortunately, is at 200. But that is what we'll do here. Let me see. What is the price that I'm laying on this total? Yeah. Oh, you can't see this. I'm in a different tab, but let me see. Yeah, I mean, I'm laying a bit more than I would like on that for the split bet, but we'll call it LA Kings minus 1.5 at plus 140. Maybe just straight up go puck line on that. I don't know, man, but that is what we can do there. It's in that price where I think you have to pay a little bit too much to do a split bet on that, but I like the Kings in that game. And Dallas is at Edmonton. Dallas kind of just on a roll right now, man. Not kind of. I mean, they are on a roll here. They're coming off an overtime win over Calgary. Now they're starting a road trip, though. And starting a road trip, I usually tell you, it is kind of a focus spot whenever you start a road trip, man. So I think they're in a focus spot. Edmonton just got that win over Montreal, and they're just sitting at home. So I think both teams are in the focus spot here. But the odds makers are telling you Edmonton is not even the better team here over Dallas. They're down from minus 125 to minus 109. I don't know if that's a goaltender switch or what it is. Public is coming in on Dallas, 72% of tickets and only 71% of the cash, but the line isn't even giving Edmonton full home ice, so I don't know about that. We will see. And then the Islanders, so I don't even know if I would have a lean in that Dallas-Edmonton game. Originally, I was saying I would lean Dallas, but I don't really know, man, because Dallas, yeah, I don't know. Both teams are in pretty focused spots there. The Islanders are coming off a win over Winnipeg. I mean, so that would lead you to believe they should be in an unfocused spot here. But they are starting a road trip, and then they're starting a road trip against a San Jose team that's returning home from a road trip. So, and San Jose is so bad, and returning home from a road trip, I can't play San Jose here, man. Even though the Islanders are in a bad spot, the money looks like it is coming in on San Jose. I agree with it. Islanders down from minus 180 to minus 160. 55% of the cash on them, 88% of the cash, 55% of tickets, on the Islanders. 88% of the cash coming in on San Jose. I agree with the San Jose side. I just don't think I can play on a team that's returning home from a road trip and is as bad as San Jose is. And with the Islanders starting a road trip, the Islanders are coming off that big win over Winnipeg, so still would lean that way. Let's do NBA before we get out of here. Brooklyn is coming off a game where they played really close against Golden State and now going down to Charlotte. So you think, well, Brooklyn just played really close against Golden State, right? So they should be in a bad spot. Well, Charlotte is also in a bad spot because they just played really close against Cleveland yesterday. So both of these teams are coming off really close calls as big underdogs. So I'm not going to get involved here. The Nets are up from 4 to 4.5 here, but 77% of tickets, 83% of the cash coming in on the Hornets. I don't even know what I would want to do here, man. The Hornets have less rest here, I think, because the Nets didn't play yesterday. So I don't know what I would want to do in that game. I would say maybe you could look to the over. It's down from minus 215 to minus down from 215.5 to 212.5 on the total. 60% of tickets, 60% of tickets, 60% of the tickets, 65% of the cash coming in on the over. So teams, when they're in bad spots like that, sometimes it can affect the defense more than the offense. So maybe you'll see a higher scoring game here, and the total is fairly low for an NBA game. So maybe look to take that game over, but low totals usually don't want to look to go over them. But in a game like this with two awful teams, I don't think the public's really going to want to be, oh yeah, I want points to be scored in the Nets-Hornets game here. Probably not. What else we got? Let's see. Indiana and Atlanta, I think, is a weird zigzag spot here. These teams just played each other at Atlanta, and Atlanta won the game, but I think Halliburton was out in that game for Indiana, so we do have some personnel shifts here. Trae Young had a big game, and he's questionable for tonight's game, so you got to figure out who's even going to play in some of these games, man. The Pacers are up from 2-3 in this game, where without Halliburton in the game against the Hawks in the prior game, the Hawks were, I think, like a 1-point favorite. So this line is shifted to the Pacers, up from 2-3 now. 84% I think it's 98% of the cash. So the money is coming in on the Pacers to zigzag and get this win. But yes, it is a zigzag, but the line has moved way in the direction of Indiana. Again, I think it's because of the personnel. I think that probably means you're going to get Halliburton back in this game is probably what that's indicating. I'm not going to play this game. No, thank you. Miami played yesterday. They're now playing a third game in fairly quick succession where they almost beat Cleveland, which is why I faded them yesterday. 2 days later, they almost beat Minnesota, kind of. Played them really tough. Now they're having to play in a back-to-back after that. A third game in 4 days coming off those 2 tough games. So I would lean to the Chicago side in this one. Chicago is coming off a big upset win over Orlando, though, and now playing a second straight road game, though they didn't play yesterday, I don't think so. Chicago is the more rested team, but still, they are coming off an upset, so lean to Chicago, but it's not strong at all. Heat sitting at a 4.5-point favorite, 88% of tickets, only 62% of the cash on them, though. So the market seems to agree with me on this one. And then Magic Bucks, I don't know what's going on in this Magic Bucks game where the Bucks are down from 7-4. It's got to be some guys not playing for the Bucks in this game. 52% of tickets, 90% of the cash coming in on the Bucks, but the Bucks must be resting players here. Orlando is coming off yet again a horrible, horrible performance, losing at home again as a favorite to the Bulls. I mean, something's got to turn around for them. Let's see. It looks like Giannis game time decision. He might wind up missing this game, and Lillard game time decision, and Portis has been out for a while, so that's not really going to change anything. Suggs, we already knew he's been out for the season. That's been known for a few games now at the very least, and he wasn't even playing, I think, prior to that. So that shouldn't really affect what's going on with Orlando here. Probably would lean to the Orlando side. I mean, Milwaukee's coming off some big wins. I think beating Dallas is still a big win. Satisfying, at least when you beat them by 30 points at the very least. Now they're going to Orlando, and up next, I think they have a bigger game. Yeah, against Cleveland. Not going to Orlando. At home against Orlando. And tomorrow, they got to face the Cleveland Cavs. So that is a much bigger game. So, and Orlando, again, coming off an ugly loss to Chicago and starting a road trip, or at least going out on the road to face Milwaukee. So I would lean to Orlando, but you're getting fewer points here, and I just don't know why. I think probably you're going to have some guys not playing for the Magic in that one. Celtics-Lakers, man. That is the rivalry game. Tickets as low as $400. You want to go to this game? You're going to pay $400 for balcony, whereas you can go to Brooklyn and Charlotte for $10. Yeah, let's go, baby. This is ridiculous. This is the ABC ESPN game. Hey, I could go, baby. It's in Boston, but I just don't want to do it. This is Luka trying to get revenge in a different way, I guess, against Boston for the finals last year. The Lakers are the hype, man. I mean, they are the hyped team right now. They're having to fly cross country. I know it's a big game. I know they're going to be focused. You know both teams are going to be totally focused on this. LA just went to overtime against the Knicks, though, and they're coming off that and having to travel cross country. So Boston is in a bit of a better travel spot here as they're just staying at home. They've been at home for a while, so they don't even have any travel, and they are going to be the more rested team because they've had guys kind of injured/rested, so they haven't had their full lineup play, I don't think, since this Denver game, even if that. I don't even know. Like, Porzingis has missed games. Holiday's missed games. I think Tatum was out in the Portland game, too. That was the game where Pritchard and White went totally off. White lost another tooth in the game against Philly, but he'll still play. I mean, whatever. You can get that fixed up pretty easily. I think Oubre, like, elbowed him or punched him in the mouth. May have been intentional. Who knows? I think it kind of was. But the Celtics, I think that the spot sets up better for the Celtics here, man. And people are saying this is a preview of the finals. I don't really know about that. I mean, yeah, these teams have decent odds to do it. The Celtics have better odds than the Lakers. So I think the public is going to slightly come in on the Lakers. Looks like they are. 62% of tickets, although 63% of the cash on them. But the line has moved up on the Celtics from 6.5 to 7.5. So money looks like it has driven the Celtics up to the 7.5. I did see the money percentage on the Celtics earlier in the day. I would lean to the Celtics. It is the type of game where you expect the Celtics to show up. And if their players are going to be able to go, they're going to be able to go. And, of course, the Celtics do have more youth as well, even though Holiday is old. But, I mean, the Lakers' star player is still LeBron, and he is pretty old. So there is that. Celtics, they got Porzingis and Holiday both listed as game-time decisions. If they could go, they'll go in a game against the Lakers. So, and the line seems to be indicating you're probably going to get a full Celtic roster in this game. So we will see. And then my one play in the NBA is, where is it? I got it in here somewhere. It's on Detroit plus the points here. The Pistons, one of my favorite teams to play, baby, against Golden State. Golden State's returning home from a road trip, so you know this is what I do, man. You're returning home from a road trip. I know Detroit's been a decent team. They're probably going to be a playoff team, but it's a return home spot for Golden State, and they do have Portland, Sacramento up next. I mean, those are Western Conference games at least, and then the Knicks, Denver, Milwaukee, so kind of bigger games than this game against Detroit here. So Golden State, I know they've been on a huge roll. They're almost as hyped as the Lakers right now. I think since they got Butler, they've been playing well, but they've beaten some pretty questionable teams in here, man. I know Houston, that's a good win. Knicks, that's a good win, both on the road, but still, they've kind of been in a gauntlet here where they've been on the road. Basically, they were on the road coming out of the All-Star break, came back home for 2 games, and then they've been on the road since. Now they're returning home from that road trip, and I always tell you it's a bit of a distracted spot, even though they almost lost to Brooklyn, so you'd think it might be a refocus spot for Golden State, but I don't really think so when it's a road trip return spot, man. Having to fly all the way back to the West Coast, you got stuff to do at home, you've been away from home for a while. Detroit coming off a loss to the Clippers. Clippers kind of righted the ship there, so a nice win for the Clippers, but Detroit has had 2 days off, and they're not even really traveling because they're just going up from Southern California to Northern California, so they're already now adjusted to the Pacific time zone, so I think that's an advantage to Detroit here, and they do have a back-to-back here, but I think they're going to throw more focus on this Golden State game than Portland, so I will take the points with Detroit. Warriors down from 6.5 to 6, although they do have 53% of the cash right now and 57% of tickets coming in on the Pistons. I don't really agree with the percentages there, obviously. I mean, I agree with the Pistons plus the points. That is the last play, so another 2+ hour video here for everybody. What's up, man? San Francisco 49er. LeBron over his PRA. I don't know about that. You're disagreeing with me on both. All right, well, we'll see what happens. I don't think it's going to be an easy win. I never am going to play on a team that's returning home from a road trip. Well, I don't want to say never, but pretty much never. It is a bad spot for them. I don't really have a feel on the LeBron over PRA, but I mean, I just think the Lakers are hyped. I think you're probably not getting value on the LeBron prop, but PRA is a better way to look than some of the other props, so I will give you that because it can cash for you if they do well at like one thing rather than them having to do one specific thing well in the game. So I don't have much of a feel for that one. That's going to do it for me, man. Thanks everybody for hanging out. Tower Gang Tone on Twitter, patreon.com/Tower Gang. You get bonus content, you get extended episodes, pre-show, can hang out with us in a Telegram, submit to the mailbag, all that good stuff. We're the most hilarious offensive podcast out there. We're going to start to increase our YouTube presence in some way, in a censored way, so check for all that as well. That's going to do it. Tower Gang, baby. And my plays one more time. College basketball starts at 2 p.m. Princeton -7.5, Auburn -8, Jacksonville State -3, LSU +7.5, Bradley -8.5, Fairfield +7.5, Baylor +4.5, St. Thomas -7.5, hockey, Montreal +118, LA Kings -1.5 puck line +140, Detroit Pistons, the only NBA play at +6.5. That's going to do it. Thanks for hanging out, everybody. Once again, Tower Gang forever. Peace.